first. Just a couple of batteries, it'll be great.
As I can. Can you hear me? How's this?
Good morning, everyone. Fox 10 investigator Justin Lum here, coming to you from Fox 10 Studios, Doomsday Murder Trial, the final chapter. Our team getting everything ready for your coverage today. If you look at the bottom left corner right there on your screen, the verdict watch clock, it has been just under 3 minutes. I've gotten word from the court that the jury has arrived. They have started trickling in just a couple of minutes ago, arriving on time at 10 a.m. this morning to begin deliberations. You are in the right place at the right time. We have our panel ready to go as well. George Obie is talking to our Fox 10 Talks crew right now as we speak to brief them on what happened yesterday in closing arguments for Lori Daybell versus the state, or I should say the state of Arizona versus Lori Daybell, accused of conspiring to commit murder in the shooting, the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreau, her former nephew-in-law. Thank you to 400 of you watching right now. We are going to be streaming as long as we are waiting on a verdict. We're going to take a few breaks here and there, but today you're hanging out with us. We're listening to some snippets from closing arguments, and right now you got a live look at downtown Phoenix. Can we take that, Brian? The Maricopa County Superior Courthouse in that south tower right there on your left. You guys have been looking inside the courtroom for all of this trial coverage, but you may have not seen that this is the building where everything is happening. This is where Lori Daybell has had both of her two murder conspiracy trials. This one coming to a close soon as we expect a verdict today. If there isn't a verdict today, then that's another issue, and we'll be talking to our panel of experts about that. Yesterday, definitely very interesting, finishing off 18 witnesses in this trial, the state calling 18 of 22. Really only 7 minutes of closing arguments by Lori, riddled with objections by Trina Kay. We're going to talk about that now. Let's bring on the panel. We're just waiting for Rachel Smith, special prosecutor in the Idaho case against Lori Vallow Daybell. And I've just been told right now, so I'm getting real-time messages. Jury is entering the room. So the verdict watch may say 5 minutes, but deliberations are just about to begin. We're starting the clock from 10 a.m. As official as we can make it, but we are getting real-time updates. The jury entering the room right now and getting ready to deliberate on this case. Is Lori Daybell guilty of trying to have her former nephew-in-law murdered outside his Gilbert home? Okay, we've got Rich Robertson with R3 Investigations, who worked on the case for Brandon Boudreau after he was shot at. We got that one last box. Rachel's going to come in anytime. I bet it's going to happen. We got Benjamin Taylor there, criminal defense attorney in the Phoenix area, and the judge, Mel McDonald, former U.S. attorney, former prosecutor as well for the county attorney's office here in Maricopa County. Let's start with Judge Mel. What did you think about closing arguments, either Trina Kay's side or Lori's? What's your take?
That was a absolute disaster. It occurred as I predicted, that because she didn't take the stand, she would try to put in her personal beliefs and claims that she was innocent, and that explained why there was objection after objection. I don't think she could have done a better job of torpedoing her case than she did in this case by representing herself. Somebody a first year in law school would have done a 10 times better job. And I noticed last night, I was watching a little bit of the Idaho sentencing when she was sentenced up there. Again, her stupidity carried the day. The different things that the court wanted her to do for an evaluation, she refused to do it. And so when the judge went in there and just gave her maximum sentences on anything, he had nothing else to work with, because Lori is so smart that she refused to be tested. She reviewed to answer questions. And so I thought Trina did a very capable job. I think she cut back a lot of the evidence she could have used in this case. But any argument for an appeal would probably be lost, because anything that might have been controversial, she kept back.
Rich, your thoughts?
Yeah, she certainly used the closing arguments more to testify than to argue any kind of facts that came out and which drew all the objections. But the jury heard it. That if she was going to say kind of the same things if she had quote testified. So even if with the objections, even with the judge telling them to disregard it, they heard it. I think they have a sense of what her position is on it. Then simply, I didn't do it, and I don't think they proved that I did it.
Benjamin?
Of course, I agree with Judge Mill and Rich here. It wasn't the best closing argument. However, I was surprised that the jurors went home yesterday, and that tells you that maybe somebody needs a time to think, because a lot of trials, they might say it's 3:00. Let's start deliberating now. Let's get out of here by 5:00. Right. So who knows what went back there? But I mean, of course, she couldn't testify because Trina K, the prosecutor, would cross-examine her. So she's like, I can testify in closing arguments. You can't do that. However, that's what she did. And judges usually make it very lenient in closing arguments. And you pretty much can, argue the facts of the case in closing arguments. So that's one smart thing, I guess I would say, that she did kind of do here, was to try to press the limit. She's on the verge of going across the line of the ethical line, bringing in things. But that's the only thing she could do. And some key points that she did make was, you didn't see me do it. Nobody saw me do it. Nobody saw me talk to Alex. So that right there might have some doubt in some of the jurors' heads. And one thing about Lori, I mean, there's a lot of evidence against her, but that kind of a key evidence, who knows? That might have, swayed one or two jurors, despite her saying, I wasn't there and nobody really, saw me do this, or nobody could testify to that.
Thanks, Benjamin. And we have our Rachel Smith, special prosecutor on the Idaho case, jumping in just in time as we're about 10 minutes into jury deliberations. I was just told by the spokesperson for the court that the jury has entered the room, begun deliberations. They got a good night of sleep. They left court early, but heard some very, very important testimony from the final witness and Nick Balance, and then some really explosive closing arguments. I want to ask Rachel about specifically the rebuttal. Trina K's clapback right away after Lori had said that she's basically the victim of all this.
Yeah, Trina hit the nail on the head. She really focused it. I think her use of the rebuttal is exactly what it's supposed to be. I think I'm going to reach out to the court and ask them for a copy of the video and the transcript to use it in my trial ad classes. The jury had to hear the stuff from Trina. She had to put Lori's conduct in context, and I believe that's what she did.
All right, and back in the studio here, we got George Obie, Special Projects EP, just talked to our anchors for Fox 10 Talks. I was going to say this in our meeting just earlier as we were planning for the day and sort of the different scenarios. But I think maybe only some of us can really understand, and for me, this is surreal because it's been 5.5 years. To put it all in perspective for everyone, and everyone who's been working here with us since before 2019 or even during the pandemic times. But December 22nd, 2019, I reported the first story I ever did on this case. Basically, 2 missing children, parents that were persons of interest, and Chad Daybell wasn't even a parent, but at the time we didn't know much about Chad and his relationship to the kids. We find out about Alex Cox being dead. We find out about Tammy Daybell dying suddenly and her body exhumed. And we find out about a man named Charles Vallow, who was shot and killed in July 2019, and a man named Brandon Boudreau, who was shot at and was luckily not hit and survived to tell the tale, in these 2 grandparents, Kay and Larry Woodcock. And so since then, we have seen so much. And really, after this, it's over. I mean, you foresee that this saga really ends. Guilty verdict or not guilty verdict, at some point she goes back to Idaho and serves her time in prison.
Yeah, I mean,
we made it this far.
We made it this far. We talk a lot about this saga. I think the only other caveat, and we kind of alluded to this yesterday, is the only other caveat to this would be whether or not Melanie is brought to trial or charged and prosecuted in this entire saga at all. That would certainly maybe put a bow on it for the family. But, when you think about the timeline, and we heard yesterday in those closing arguments about, Brandon was key to all of this, at least in late 2019, helping local law enforcement anyway start to piece together some of these incidents that were happening in both Arizona and Idaho. I don't know that I ever understood exactly how involved he was, and maybe we'll get some clarity from him later on. But he, I think, helped to get that ball rolling in October about, look, that this family and this dynamic, there's something wrong here. We know that Kay was instrumental, at least in alerting us about the missing kids and her brother's shooting earlier in that summer. But I'm looking forward to hearing from Brandon at some point and finding out exactly how involved he was, and whether he thought that law enforcement could have acted quicker or not. Again, there's so much that we don't know, and it's surprising to say that because we know so much about all of these cases, having gone through all the evidence over the years. But I think there's still a lot we don't know, and so I look forward to hearing from Brandon at some point.
Yeah, I have kept in touch with him for a long time, and Rich, you have as well. Was there any doubt in the beginning, though, like when he told you that he was being called a dark spirit, and that this group was just so religious, basically likening it to a cult? I mean, what did you think at the time? I mean, you're a journalist at heart, so you're thinking, like, you hear a lot of crazy stories from people.
Oh yeah, I mean, I didn't know Brandon at all when I first heard the story from him, so I had no way. I approach all these things of being skeptical of the clients as well as the accusers sometimes, and I had no idea what really to make of this kind of hair on fire kind of story that I was hearing, and frankly, it was coming at me like a fire hose, so I was just grabbing stuff as it went flying by, and it kind of took a while to get a real focus on what to do with it. Brandon did. He was instrumental, I think, in a lot of ways in moving this investigation along. Kay Woodcock and Larry were certainly the faces of it, and they had a lot of role in it too, but they were the kind of forward-facing public face of this case. Brandon was doing a lot behind the scenes, and he very deliberately was staying out of the public eye, knowing for one thing that he was going to have to testify one day and didn't want to cause any problems there. He was still involved in child custody issues with his wife, so he was very cautious, and you saw that as he testified of how precise and deliberate and focused he was, even in his testimony. He's been that way throughout the last 5.5 or so years that this has been dogging him.
Okay, so I've gotten word that the jury has officially started those deliberations. They entered the room a few minutes ago, and now they're getting into the nitty-gritty. They're getting into the case and discussing, what they need to discuss to come to a verdict. And we put that poll question in our chat box. Is she going to be found guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder against Brandon Boudreau? And the options are obviously yes, guilty, not guilty, or hung jury. Judge Mel, I love to ask you these questions. What do you think about the verdict? What's your prediction? Break it down.
I think the chances of an acquittal are impossible. There is no way in this evidence that you're going to find 12 people that are going to say not guilty. I think the best opportunity they have is to have one or two people with a hung jury. And I think that's highly unlikely too. I would be shocked if we don't have a verdict of guilty today. I just think the evidence, the dreadful defense that Lori put on, the compelling arguments, the pieces that were put together in the puzzle provide a compelling case that should convince this jury beyond a reasonable doubt.
And Judge, you can help on this. Explain a little bit about the role the Judge Bresky would have if the foreperson comes to him and there's some indication that there is a holdout juror or a couple of jurors who are still on the fence. I think I asked you this in the last trial. What's the line of communication and what is Bresky's role in kind of mediating and kind of getting a good barometer of the jury room and where they are and how close or not close they may be to a verdict?
Well, over the years, I had many, many cases where you have a possibility of a hung jury because of the tremendous expense that goes into a trial, the witnesses coming from out of state, all that goes into it. The theory behind it is that you let the jury continue to deliberate. Even oftentimes when they say we're deadlocked, well, spend a few more hours, see if you can discuss it. The judge obviously can't have any input into it. There can be no suggestion from any side as to what the judge might feel. So bottom line, this is not going to be an acquittal. The best she could hope for is a hung jury. But I really believe we're going to have a verdict probably this afternoon.
Yeah, definitely a difference between hung and a full acquittal. I mean, the evidence, I think, is overwhelming here in this case because let's not forget about the Google searches by Lori and Alex regarding Brandon Boudreau, the shooting that happened on October 2nd, 2019, the logistics and like the technicalities that go into the alleged scheme. There's so much there. But Benjamin, do you think that Melanie Pawlowski is already getting some sort of, I don't know, preparation in order in case charges do come? Now, I will say that I reached out to the county attorney's office. They have not received a recommendation from Gilbert PD regarding a charge in this case. But Trina K made it clear to the public, to the whole world that is watching this case, that she is being investigated. She's not going to represent herself, that's for sure.
Well, Justin, I think Melanie is probably getting her passport ready and her new travel ID ready, because if she had been paying attention to this case and heard the prosecutor Trina K, it might be coming. So who knows what she's going to do? But in this type of case, she might be on a plane right now as we speak, because I mean, as Rachel knows and our panel knows too, is a grand jury indictment is a secret and proceeding. So that could be going on right now. It should be getting indicted right now as we speak. Who knows, right? But we might not hear from Melanie again for a long time if she knows what's in for her. But ethically, she can't leave. Ethically, she needs to stay here if she's has a warrant out for her arrest. But when people I know people, I represent, tons of people in the criminal defense world. When they know something is coming, sometimes people disappear.
Wow. Benjamin coming in hot today.
I don't think she's going to abandon her children, though.
I gotta say, and I'm gonna be unpopular with Benjamin and probably many of your viewers. I think if the state was going to charge Melanie Boudreau, they would have charged her already. Technically, this investigation will be open because there's no statute of limitations on conspiracy to commit cases the rest of their lives. So the fact that a prosecutor says an investigation is open is technically legally correct until the statute of limitations is gone. I think the main targets in this case would have been Alex, would have been Lori and Chad. And if they could have used Melanie against those people, they would have. So they would have had to charge her early. So I know I'm being the downer. I know that your audience is going to be like, Rachel, you are such a naysayer. But I will tell you, I think if the state was actually going to do charges, they would have done it by now. Especially on conspiracy to commit murder. It is highly unusual in a multi-defendant conspiracy case that you stagger your indictments by years. You might by months, to allow time for people to kind of make mistakes, listen to their phone calls, yada, yada. You're doing your investigative technique and you use one indictment to pressure for the other. None of that happened here. So I think Trina was being ethical and explaining to the court that that investigation remains open. It's going to be open for a long time, but realistically, I will be very, very surprised. And Benjamin, I will owe him a good bottle of wine if I'm wrong. I think this really could be the end of things for everybody, and maybe we can just put this as a bookend and move on, and Lori can ride off into the sunset.
And I think I'm ready for that. I mean, this has taken almost 6 years of our lives for me, and I'm ready for this to really, have some closure. Obviously, justice is important for everyone who's been impacted. But Brian, let's take a look at bite one from closing arguments. Trina K talking about the Jeep that we've heard so much about. Do we have that?
And the Jeep. And Alex Cox is Googling in Arizona.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I thought I
Hold
tagged
up,
Glenn. My
you
bad.
see that LPR reader showing the Jeep with no tire on the back, so they can open that rear window, exactly as Brandon explained. This defendant's Jeep. What do we know is that, again, the burner phone is calling one person, this defendant's husband, Chad Daybell. We see that Alex Cox is in Arizona with other physical evidence. What is that? It's that receipt from Los Favoritos that was recovered inside the Jeep in Idaho.
Judge Mel, what did you think of, this is how Trina started it off, and very methodical in her approach, PowerPoint presentation and all, timeline, list of evidence that she had already gone over and summed up to really condense this all for the jury here. But the Jeep, the location, obviously I feel like this jury has seen this Jeep 100 times.
Yeah, I think she did a superb job in laying it out, organizing it. I mean, there's so many pieces to this puzzle that fit together. The evidence regarding the Jeep is just absolutely compelling. In the video with them putting the tire in the storage facility, I think there's really some overwhelming evidence. I did want to add one thing in response to Rachel's point. I think it is well taken. Going into the argument yesterday, I had wondered why Melanie had not been included. Frankly, I was kind of shocked, especially with the argument when she is identified as part of the conspiracy. There were parts that always troubled me, the fact that no one else knew where he was living other than Melanie, and the way the facts came together in some of these calls. But I think Rachel's point is well taken, that if you were going to charge her, we're now years and years into this, and we've now gone through the trial. I think her point is well taken. Until yesterday, my conclusion would have been there's no way that she's going to be charged. But given the fact that it's been this many years, these trials have gone on, and there's no charge, I think she may fall under the radar.
And I don't know if any of you guys can answer this, but Mel, you brought this up just as far as who gets the custody of Lori after this. We know that she's just serving her time here because she's going through court proceedings in Maricopa County, but after this is all said and done, she's supposed to serve her prison sentence in Idaho. But at some point after this trial. She's still been convicted for the Charles Vallow case and will have to go through her sentencing here. Does she stay in the Maricopa County Jail? Does she head to Department of Corrections and go to Perryville where Jodi Arias is? I mean, what does the process look like? How does extradition work? I mean, is Idaho versus Arizona fighting to keep her? I doubt that. But what can happen here? Anybody jump in?
Well, usually what happens is you stay in the jail until you're sentenced. And she should probably be staying in the Australia jail, where the woman's jail here in Maricopa County, until she's sentenced. And I mean, there'd be no big reason to send her back to Idaho and send her back here to Arizona, back and forth. You know, the costs, the money, the time, and the effort to do that. So I would assume that she's going to stay here until all of her sentences are done, and then Idaho and Arizona will decide where she does her main sentence. She might be going back to Idaho after she is sentenced on these two cases. I guess one case right now, but two cases that she's convicted today.
So she could very well be extradited right after the sentencing if that is set up. I doubt that the extradition process is that quick, but after her sentencing here in Arizona, she will have to be placed somewhere. I don't know if it's just going to be a straight jail until she goes back to Pocatello. So we'll see. That'll be another booking photo for her.
It would be part of the extradition from Idaho, and I meant to look at that court order that happened after I got off the case. It will be part of the extradition order that Arizona got from Idaho when they brought her down. It should be in that court order on how long she's to stay in Arizona. So it is knowable. I'll see if I can find that court order if it's public. Whether the court order from Idaho letting Arizona take her specifies what prison sentence gets served first. So I'll try to see if I can find it. Yeah.
Interesting. All right, let's take a live look at our courthouse camera for all of you who haven't seen a beautiful downtown Phoenix. Probably 105 degrees already. But you're seeing, hey, Judge Mel, did you miss that building? South Tower right there, Maricopa County Superior Court, and that is where this jury of 12 is deliberating. It's been a little bit less than half hour, but they're supposed to arrive at 10 a.m. They have. Things are underway.
Yeah, I certainly don't miss the drive. It was a beautiful facility. But having retired, I enjoy sleeping in more than making the drive.
We're telling a lot of stories here. Verdict is in.
Wow.
Verdict is in.
Hey.
Verdict is in. I just got the news right now. My phone just popped up.
That's 30 minutes.
George, take over. Take over while I do some tweeting.
Oh, my goodness. 30 minutes.
That suggests
less than 30 minutes.
But again, we don't.
We got a quick of a verdict after she gave such a stunning closing argument.
Yeah, right.
Verdict is in 10:30 a.m.
That's
Wow.
Wow. So what do you think?
I guess we don't have a hung jury.
We do not have a hung jury.
They came in today and said, "Hey, who thinks guilty?" They raised their hands, and then we're like, "Okay, time to go home."
Yeah. Then the next vote was, should we stick around for lunch?
Right.
Right. Well, and they're like, "Well, we have to buy our own anyway, so no, let's go home."
Well, and this is another important reminder, right?
That's fair.
Let's take the clock off. The clock is 30-minute mark. So, Brian, we can get rid of that.
I think it's important that we should remind people how this works, right? The jury gets together. It's the first time they've all had the opportunity to talk about the case. So in the last 30 minutes, all 12 of these people got together, spoke amongst themselves for the first time, and came to a conclusion. I mean, that's, I guess, not surprising. It happens, I'm sure, a lot more than what we report on, but my goodness. Like you said, maybe, like Mel said, maybe it was the defense. I brought it up on the stream, Fox 10 Talks this morning, that you have two trials now, juries going into a courtroom, and they're tasked with listening to both sides And I can only imagine, and well, I've certainly asked this, but I can only imagine being a juror and hearing the state, and then when it comes time for the defense, and they have nothing. And as a juror, I'd be thinking, well, what am I supposed to do with that? Like, what? I mean, I want to give benefit of the doubt here, but you're almost giving me no choice, despite all the evidence and all the facts and all that stuff. Like, at least put up somewhat of a fight. That may be 30 minutes. My goodness, wow.
Less than 30. I mean, really, I'm looking at the timestamps right now from my guy here. They entered the room at 10:04. And when they got started, it was 10:15. Like when they really, sat down, let it marinate. All 12 are here. We got our 4-person. Let's go. You ready? Everyone have a good night's sleep. 15 minutes.
I mean, it takes 5 minutes just to probably do the vote around the room. No, I mean, that's. I mean, you got to, or like a couple minutes to get settled.
They're going to read the verdict in 25 minutes.
Oh, boy.
All right, this is what we're going to do. Panel, let's take a quick recess. We're going to get set up for this reading. It should be on a 5-minute delay. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Let's take the slate.
Let me go double check and that's something.
watching since early this morning. We've got double headphones on. I'm ready for this live feed to come in about 20, 25 minutes when we see that state seal up. When we see that state seal up for the last time in this trial, really, before, if, there's still a sentencing in the Charles Vallow case. But this was a 15-minute deliberation. You know where everyone's minds are going here when it takes 15 minutes. We've got our panel on standing by. Brian, let's get a look at downtown Phoenix one more time for everyone just to get that perspective and see what just happened. We're going to change that lower third as well now that verdict watch is done, and we are now just waiting in about 20 to 25 minutes for this to be heard. Is Lori Daybell guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder against Brandon Boudreau? You're looking at the Maricopa County Superior Courthouse, the South Tower. That is exactly where the jury had a short deliberation. They went home at 3 o'clock yesterday. They came back this morning, and that was it. I wonder who the foreperson was. I wonder what questions they had. But this is, I got to go to Judge Mel here. Have you ever seen a deliberation go this quick? Judge Mel?
Yeah, I've seen a few over the.
All right, let's take them. Go ahead.
Yeah, I've seen a few quick verdicts over the years, but this really is surprising. I think for an acquittal, you've got a better chance of winning the lotto today than she has of getting a not guilty. So I think it's just a matter of time before the jury returns. But I really am surprised. I thought they would at least go a couple of hours this morning, come back early in the afternoon. But then again, given the evidence, Lori had absolutely nothing that was compelling, and I thought the state had put the pieces together. So they probably got in and say, where do we all stand? And they raise their hand, guilty. Let's finish it. There's nothing more to discuss.
Rich, do you think it's almost too quick? I mean, have you seen something like this?
Not only in Ben's trials.
Yikes.
Wow. In a good way, right?
You gotta have a little levity. No, this is pretty damn quick.
Benjamin, you've been doing this for a long time too. You've been on the both ends. You've been on the defense. You've been on the public defense as well. I mean, this 15 minutes, we were all just in shock there.
Yes, no, this is very shocking. And I was shocked because yesterday they had the verdict around, they had the case around like 3 o'clock, right? 3:30 when the closings ended. So I'm wondering, why did it stay there and do this yesterday, right? I mean, why did they want to go home and come back for like 30 minutes to do it? Who knows, right? But I'm very shocked. I'm very shocked, especially in a high profile case like this. But I have seen it happen before. You hear stories like others happening. When jurors are ready to go home and they have made up their mind, there's nothing to discuss. So like we discussed, they probably just went inside, asked around the room who believes guilty, and maybe all 12 of them raised their hand, and they're like, what's there else to discuss? Let's go home.
Rachel, this obviously, why was it so quick? What do you think the evidence was? I mean, I'm just trying to envision this jury talking to each other just minutes ago, raising their hands or pointing to something. For you, being an expert on this and prosecuting that case in Idaho, what could it be here?
I think it's a combination of several factors. The state laid out a very clear narrative and a very clear story. We see that they didn't even have questions for most of the trial. And when they don't have questions, that means it's clear in their mind what they've just heard. So I do think one of the biggest strengths was the clear, concise presentation of evidence. But I also think it's hard to overcome those videos. There's no reason for those Google searches. There's no reason for anybody other than Mel Boudreau to know where Brandon lives. I think he had some powerful pieces of evidence that were put forward clearly, cleanly. They got it when it was on the stand. So I think you're seeing a combination of clear, concise, strong evidence.
I'd like to jump in on that. I think I agree with that, with the addition that the jury did not hear a different story from the defendant. So all they had was a clear, concise, complete, one-sided story, and they had nothing else to compare it to. So, there really wasn't anything else to vote on.
One other thought I had is that they have Lori performing for the 5 days, and I think the failure to question some of the witness, her behavior, the repeated objections in the closing argument, I think she rings out as absolutely non-genuine. And I think they looked at her and think she's pathetic. And she is. When you look at the history of what happened, when you look what happened in this case, accusing Brandon of being homosexual, breaking into her computer, she is so non-likable. And as Rich pointed out, there's no evidence. And as Rachel said, it was laid out, so there's nothing more to discuss. I think I'm really surprised it was this quick, but again, when you look at it, I'm not. I mean, the only one that gets these quicker verdicts is Benjamin. And
boy, he's getting hammered on today.
I think, I think to hammer home that point, again, so they clearly noticed that she didn't put up any sort of defense, but then you wonder too, like you guys mentioned, her performance or her cross-examinations of some of these witnesses appears to be somewhat telling to the jury about her relationship to this case. I guess the other theory would be then if she hadn't cross-examined anybody, would that have helped her in any way? Because if you leave a jury with more questions than answers on anything, you're kind of forcing their hand to go, well, we can only really believe the one side that's being presented, right? So would she have, I guess, in theory, been better off not cross-examining anybody or only cross-examining one witness, say somebody who wasn't Brandon? Because as we've talked about, you get to see who Lori is in both of these trials. If you didn't know anything about her, or if you did follow the case but hadn't really heard her speak, or hadn't heard her kind of interact with anybody, this was a great window into who she is as a person. There were times when her true person came out. We saw that with Boreski in their interactions away from the jury. So I do wonder, though, would this have been any different if she just had sat there and not put up any defense, not crossed, and just let the state kind of run with it? I mean, I think I know the answer, but I'm curious about whether or not she even hurt herself even more by going up there and kind of putting herself in front of this jury the way she did.
I have had cases where the defendant does what they call a demur, sits there silently, doesn't do anything. And those verdicts, they're not this fast, but those verdicts are usually really fast because Rich is absolutely right. And there's an adage when you're teaching this stuff, the best story wins. And so that's why you've got to have a really clear narrative and a really clear story with the evidence that makes sense. And so I think silence would not have helped her.
That's why you have a lawyer represent you.
Yeah.
Her going herself was an act of extreme stupidity because the jury gets to see how she reacts with people. I remember in the last trial when she's confronting somebody that had dated Vallow shortly before his death. It was disgusting.
Nancy Jo Hancock.
Try to pass judgment going out with somebody and she's shacking up with Daybell. I mean, don't need to be a rocket scientist to think this woman's stupidity, she's unrivaled in this case. No, she had to ask questions once she went that direction. Mm-hmm. But the fact of the matter is her putting herself on display, getting repeated objections, the jury can see what's going on, and taking this on herself, it was an utter act of stupidity. And it explains why we've got a 15-minute verdict.
Judge Mel, do you think it would have been different if she testified?
Say that again?
What if she testified?
That would have been an answer to prayer. I would have loved to have had her, but we would have been in trial for 2 months. Where do you start? Benjamin would have probably had her for 3 months.
Right, because what if she only testified? What if again, she didn't cross, didn't do whatever, and just put herself one shot deal on the stand? Does that change? Because then you're only giving a window into who this person is in that environment. Again, she would still have to be cross-examined, which is, we have theorized, that is where she would have potentially lost this case, because Trina would have done what I think all of you, Rachel included, would have loved to have done, and grilled Lori.
Yeah. Oh, it would have been a prosecutor's dream. Absolutely. But I'm wondering if that would have given her, but I just don't think, I think the judge is right. Lori has really shown who she is in a way that was less visible in Idaho, because she had highly competent attorneys. She didn't speak. She tried the little girl, sit there silent, looking sad, act. That didn't work. So Lori has shown everybody she is intelligent. She is capable of planning and thoughtful and concise behavior. She's just evil about it.
Let's listen to part of her closing arguments, really, as we get into this verdict being read here. Brian, let's go with bite 7. Lori says she wasn't at the crime scene.
We read the text from Brandon to me on June 25th, 2019, where he claims that he will never stop until he proves that I am responsible. Well, here we are, almost 6 years later, and I'm charged with conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. In order to have a conspiracy, 2 or more people have to make an agreement to commit a crime. There is no such agreement between me and my brother Alex, although I did love my brother Alex.
And I'm going to object again, Your Honor, to testifying.
Sustained.
There is no agreement that was shown to you between myself and Melanie Boudreau, although I love Melanie.
And I'm going to object again to testifying.
Sustained.
I cannot tell you what happened that day on October 2nd, 2019, because I was not there.
And I'm going to again object to testifying, and please strike everything the defendant has said.
So right now, as we get ready for the reading of this verdict here, everyone's getting into the courtroom right now. Brandon Boudreau is there. His wife is there. Prosecution, defense is there. Just waiting for Lori Vallow Daybell to come in, and we should be hearing this in about 10 minutes or so. I think everybody's still sort of absorbing the surprise of such a quick deliberation, 15 minutes. And you have to assume that this is probably a guilty verdict if we were betting money right now with 15 minutes in deliberations.
I mean, I guess it's not out of the question. I think all 12 were like, nope, not enough. But you would think those discussions would have been had a lot longer than the 10, 15 minutes they spent discussing this. Even if you came into that jury room with some preconceived kind of verdict in your head, I would imagine, again, I've never been able to sit on a jury long enough to get to this point. I'm usually excused after I disclose what I do for a living. So these discussions, though, I got to be very important, especially when you're deciding the fate of someone. Again, they don't know that she's going back to Idaho to serve the rest of her life in prison. They don't know anything, in theory, about her previous crimes. So like any other jury, you realize that your job is to decide whether a person is guilty or innocent. And then, of course, there's consequences one way or the other. But yeah, 20 minutes. I don't think there's any other conclusion we can make at this point that they've reached a guilty verdict.
Have any of you seen a deliberation that went quick and it was not guilty for the verdict?
I mean, my cases all the time, you know.
95% of bench cases.
No, I haven't. Now, let's hope we're wrong this time. But no, I personally have not. Not this fast, not with the evidence, not with the defendant doing what they did.
Yes, and we know that Brandon Boudreau will address the media after the verdict. I mean, now, assuming that hopefully it's good news for him, for justice for him and everything he's been through, and he's going to say a few words, and the hope is that we have him here at some point and really get into the story and everything that, he's been through, how he's been affected, how he's come out of this stronger. Rich, with your experience, you've gotten to watch him now as a man 5 years older, with his family growing up and going through what he went through. I mean, can you believe it's been just 5 years or so ago where he was afraid for his life, and you guys were trying to wrap your heads around what was really going on at that time?
Yeah, it's been an amazing journey, and it's feels like it's gone by in a blink, even though it really hasn't. There's so many things have happened over these years, and of course, COVID and everything else kind of slowed things down and created their own set of issues. And this was a death penalty case in Idaho, and it usually takes a lot longer for death penalty cases to be tried. That one even went pretty fast, but I think. I'm wondering, I haven't had a chance to talk to him at all recently about this, but the revelations about Melanie being under investigation, I mean, they have a co-parenting plan going on right now. And, I think that's got to be something that's weighing on him now, even more than the verdict, is what's the future looking like for the mother of my children, we're trying to protect these kids. What's in the best interest of the kids in relationship to their mom who's under investigation for trying to murder their dad? It's got to be. He's got to have a lot of conflicting thoughts going through his head at this point.
Yeah. And what we're hearing from Nate Eaton with East Idaho News, Judge Bresky has come to the bench right now. He's heard that a verdict has been reached, and we should see the jury come in, and the verdict will be read in just moments. I guess, does anybody have any questions for each other on the panel? As we're getting things underway, technically sound, and making sure we can get this to our audience. But I guess we can chat here for a little bit.
Well,
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Is Kay or Ray Hermosillo, or who is anybody with Brandon? His wife is with him, I'm assuming, and maybe some close family. Is Kay there, or is Larry there? Is Lieutenant Hermosillo there?
I believe Kay is there, and Larry has not been to these two trials.
Yeah.
He's been home. I think he's okay though, but this has been a Kay Woodcock mission for the most part. And I think she has had her victim advocate with her.
Yeah, they have their granddaughter. So I know Larry was taking care of a grandchild. But what about Ray Hermosillo? Because some of these people have lived with it for 6 years alongside Brandon. And the officers in this case, you speak to any of them just one-on-one, and when they think back on finding JJ, finding Tylee, they profoundly change them. So I'm wondering who's there to kind of see the bookend of this 6-year long run.
Yeah. Okay. So right now we are getting, according to Nate Eaton with East Idaho News, she has been found guilty. We will be showing you that live in our 5-minute delay, but she has been found guilty. Lori Daybell has been found guilty of conspiracy to commit first degree murder. I mean, that's it.
Yeah.
That is it. I mean, 15 minutes.
Great.
That is the live report there.
So the question now is, what happens immediately here? They talked about this yesterday about going into the aggravation phase because this jury would have to vote on some aggravators. So they're going to be not dismissed right away, presumably. But Lori indicated that she was going to stipulate, and I believe she did this in the Charles Vallow case. She just accepted it. So I don't. Maybe somebody knows what is going to happen with this aggravation phase now.
She stipulated again. She basically objected to the aggravation phase. They spoke about that yesterday, I believe, either before or after the Rule 20 motion that, if this situation came up with the aggravating factors, that she would object to it. So, yeah.
So she would have the evidence.
So we're just waiting for sentencings.
Yeah.
But wow, I mean, this saga now has almost right there at the end with sentencings to go here in Maricopa County. Lori Daybell found guilty of conspiracy to commit murder after about 15 to 20 minutes of deliberation.
Good.
My goodness.
Finally, I hope this gives Brandon and Kay and everybody some peace. That's excellent.
I'm sort of at a loss for words, guys.
Yeah.
Justin, you've been working so hard for all these years. So, kudos to you and Fox 10 for all your hard work and coverage over all these years.
I appreciate that.
Doing it. I mean, I've been watching you and doing your thing, and you've been doing a lot, in the Valley on this case. So thank you for bringing the news coverage on this case for all these years. So I'm sure that the family really appreciates that.
You guys have been rock stars, and I think all of the panelists have enjoyed working together and working with you. I'm very impressed with the depth you've gone in. You've asked good questions, and I think there's a reason why you have so many followers, and I've been appreciative and honored to be a part of this panel with these distinguished guests.
I appreciate it. Hey, let's take a quick break. We want to talk to you guys soon and want you guys to see this actually unfold on video when we get this figured out. But we'll take a break and see you guys in just a moment.
Thank you.
But I don't know if it's been on.
Having an aggravator phase at all.
Okay, so the state has alleged this is a dangerous offense. Do you understand? And the state has also alleged that this particular crime that you've been found guilty of involved the use or of an accomplice. Is that the extent of the aggravators that you want to prove up?
To the jury, yes, that's all we were going to ask to do.
All right. So, Ms. Daybell, do you understand you have the right to have a jury decide whether or not those aggravators are proven beyond a reasonable doubt?
I do understand that.
I'll reach out to our extraditions.
All right. All right. So we will be at recess. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, he's not here.
Any day that week.
Second, I think that.
Does it have to be within 30 days? Your Honor, is that more than 30 days? Doesn't it have to be within 30 days?
It is more than 30 days.
I said it's like trial. Like you can have
because we do have people flying in, they would prefer a Friday. I don't know if August 1st.
I can also do it Friday, July 25th.
I know that's close on a couple of their schedules. Let me just make sure they're able to fly here. Your Honor, the 25th of July would also work.
All right. Does the defendant want to be heard on a sentencing date?
Do I want to be heard?
On a sentencing date, yeah.
Do I want to speak on sentencing day?
No,
Is that what you're asking me?
Do you want to be heard on what
The
date?
timing?
Yeah, what date I should set this for?
Yes, I would like it to be within 30 days, if possible.
All right. The soonest available is July 25th. I'll set it from 9 a.m. to noon, just to be safe, on July 25th in this same courtroom. Anything else?
Can you do anything about the timing of me being transported after that?
Actually, I would like the county attorney and or the sheriff's office. I don't know if I need to make specific orders on the record regarding transferring back to Idaho. I don't know what the interstate agreement was on having her transported here.
It was immediately after, but I think they have up to 30 days to pick me up. That's why I wanted the sentencing to be moved up, because they still have 30 days after that.
Okay.
If there's something you can do about that.
I guess what I'm requesting from any party, either side or the sheriff's office, is what particular language people are looking for in order to accomplish that transfer.
I will reach out to our extraditions.
All right. All right. So we will be at recess. All right. Thank you.
Yeah, he's not here.
All right, I'm going to keep an eye on that.
All right, you are looking at Lori Daybell in the courtroom, just convicted of conspiracy to commit murder. She walks out of the courtroom. We may have shown you this earlier after the 5-minute delay. Here's what's going on right now. You guys will see the verdict at some point in this stream. This was on the part of the pool camera feed. There are other issues going on that media outlets are facing and are dealing with the same thing as us. With such short notice, things happen. 25 minutes to spare after the announcement of the verdict being reached. You saw the back end of it, and you now know that sentencing for Lori Daybell will take place on July 25th. Regarding this conviction, she will be extradited back to Idaho. She wants to be taken back to Idaho within 30 days or so. We are also... and at some point, Brian, just so you're aware, REM 12, you see the courthouse there, the steps. You're going to see Brandon Boudreau come out, address the media. We will take their audio, and so you can hear what Brandon Boudreau has to say. I mean, right now you're looking at it. Thank you for taking that, Brian. You see the little makeshift podium there. You've got the general public. You have, media coming out. I see Vincent Funari with the courthouse, the spokesperson with that little badge right there and glasses coming out. So we are getting ready to go. Let's come back to us as our cameraman gets set up for that. And at some point when we confirm Obi's handling this, so I feel much safer now and comforted that we are going to get this refeed. But as you now know, she has now been found guilty in all of her trials. Let's bring the panel on. Sentencing. Extradition. Rachel, you got to hear some of that. She doesn't want to be in Arizona any longer. Very, very obvious.
Yeah, she made it clear that Lori made it clear that she believes the extradition order from Idaho made it clear that 30 days or immediately upon her conviction that she was to be Arizona was to notify Idaho, and that Idaho had 30 days to come get her. So she's looking to get back to Idaho as quickly as possible. It's in that interstate order, and so I think we'll see her leave Arizona certainly by mid-August.
And now we are just looking out to see if jurors come out and talk to us about how this was such a quick deliberation. Judge Mel, what's going through your mind? What would you ask a juror?
I would ask the juror what how the process went where there was that quick of a jury verdict. I think I would ask him, what were your feelings about the presentation? What were the positives and the negatives that you saw in the case? I'd be interested in their observation of Lori representing herself and the way she handled herself. Whether they would speak to that, I don't know. But yeah, by the time you select your foreman, I've got a feeling they took a straw vote. They raised their hands, unanimous. Is there anything to discuss? No. And all right, let's report back to the court. We've got a verdict.
Benjamin?
I mean, your team in the first trial, they were able to interview one of the jurors. I remember one of the male jurors was like, I was confused. I almost voted, not guilty or maybe hung. I remember the first trial you guys did that. So for this trial, I think I agree with Judge Mel. Like, what were you thinking of Lori? What did you think about, Trina Kaye's, the prosecutor's arguments, and what did you even discuss? And why did you go home yesterday? I'm still wondering, why did they go home yesterday when they had the verdict around 3:00, or they had the case around 3:00, and they could have just talked amongst themselves and got it done yesterday? So what made them want to, take another shower, get dressed, fight the traffic to come back this morning?
I think
that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Because go ahead, Rich.
Well, I was going to say I would want to know about whether they were aware of what was going on with the Charles Vallow and the kids' murders and all that kind of stuff. Presumably they didn't. So if those questions get asked about in the little press conference, if any of them talk, that's going to, in theory, be the first time they hear about it. That their reaction to that could be entertaining. But if I had this case as an investigator in post-conviction after her appeals and stuff, one of the things I'd be looking for is whether there was jury misconduct.
Right.
In terms of looking at whether or not they had done any independent research. Was this verdict influenced by knowledge of the prior cases? In theory, she should be asking for a new trial within the next 10 days. That's the time when we typically do these kinds of research into jury misconduct. But because she's representing herself, that ain't going to happen.
Yeah, we saw that obviously at the end of the last trial. There was some confusion about a juror who spoke and kind of what they meant about, 3 life sentences or, the 3 other crimes, that kind of thing. I think there were a lot of online people who kind of read into what he said a little bit more than I think what he meant. We obviously spoke to him, but it was clear from the jurors that we spoke to that none of them had really any knowledge of this overarching kind of saga. In fact, one of the jurors has now was even, I think, at the court on opening arguments. So some of the jurors who didn't know anything in the last trial certainly learned enough after and were so kind of intrigued by this that they wanted to kind of follow closely on this case. Let me ask you from a juror's perspective, and I feel like for somebody like me, it's obviously easy. I work in this business. Talking to the media is just kind of, it's a no-brainer. But from a juror's perspective, do you find that it's more difficult to get them to talk? Specifically, obviously, in a high-profile case like this, to getting them to talk about what went on behind the scenes, because it's not a privacy thing. But there's so many people that want to get a window into that world and what it takes. I'm just curious from your experience, Ben. I'll start with you. Do you notice that jurors have any issue with kind of opening up about what the process is on a case, especially maybe in your cases?
Yes, I think in high-profile cases, jurors do want to talk because they know it's a high-profile case, right? And there's a possibility for jurors to even write a book in the future if they want to. In normal everyday cases, usually those jurors are trying to get home and they get in their car and they go home as soon as they can. So that's very unique. And this is the thing about after the case is over, you can talk to the jurors, meaning Lori Vallow, in a normal case, the attorneys would go back in the back and talk to the jurors. And the prosecutor would go back in the back and the judge would be there. And you're in the judge's chambers and you're asking questions and they get to know you. I don't know if this is going to happen in this type of case because she's representing herself. But it'd be curious if her advisory council, if they were allowed to go back in the back to talk to the jurors, or even Lori. I doubt the judge would let Lori go back there because she's in custody. But normally you go back there and talk. And sometimes the jurors are willing to be open, and some jurors just want to go home and they will ignore you.
Hey, let's no audio yet. Okay, let's take. I think we have the refeed. I'm hoping we're going to try this.
We do. So they're
23 REM 23.
Right, REM 23. It looks like it's frozen now. They usually will put that up, warn stations, to be ready to roll. We're already rolling, but they're going to refeed here in just a moment. Everything that was shot.
I see movement though, so stand by, or should we just let's take it right now and talk over it, see what we get here. Lori Daybell sitting at the seat. This is right at 10:59:56 in real time, so about 20 minutes ago. All right, here we go. Judge Boreski coming to the bench. Let's do this.
I don't hear any audio.
Well,
so that's
be
another issue. The video is one thing, the audio is the other.
Oh, court TV.
We
So maybe we'll get this to the viewers in pieces. We got them the sentencing, and we'll get them the verdict without audio. Then we'll do it with audio.
Yeah, right.
Okay, so you're getting a look at what went on. We're still figuring that out there, and we're also watching the courthouse steps right now. Is there audio? You guys see? Nope. No audio yet. All right. Looking at the courthouse steps, waiting for Brandon Boudreau to come out. Now, he's probably still talking to the prosecution, thanking them for everything, and it's been a long ordeal. We appreciate all of you watching with us, 1,600 of you staying patient with this. Trust me, this is an issue that was all over the place. I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but, we prepared. We were ready to take the feed. Okay, let's go back to us, and we'll wait till we get that figured out. So we're basically waiting on them to refeed this correctly, right?
Yeah, and I think they just realized that they were feeding with no audio, so now they'll re-rack and start it again. I do. We do again. We have a camera outside the courtroom now. Still a lot of media interest in this. Everybody kind of waiting to hear not only from the family. You mentioned it. Brandon Boudreau is expected to make a statement. We expect Kay Woodcock obviously to. Be asked about her feelings on this. This will, again, outside of the penalty phase, this I think will be interesting. I wonder how long they'll stay around, Kay, whether she'll see this through to the penalty portion of this. This is, we've talked a lot about dates. You and I have discussed, the other day, in fact, when it was the 5-year anniversary of Tylee and JJ's remains being found on the property in Idaho. I wonder, though, Rachel, you could shed light on this. This is still, I would imagine, pretty high interest for folks in Idaho, even though we're talking about a case that's specific to Arizona. I would imagine, and our viewers have kind of checked in from all over the world, but this is, I think, still of high interest for those that are still connected to this case in Idaho.
Yeah, I am not in Idaho most of the time, but I still have a case or two back there. Even last time I was in Idaho, I came in, I checked in, and the people at the front desk, asked me if there was anything going on in Lori's case. Why was I there? So, and that's, a couple of years after the conviction. So yeah, that is a tight community, those two counties. They felt the missing nature of the children and the loss of those children and Tammy deeply. And I think it's going to resonate for a long time there. So while this is satisfying and helpful, two counties and a community that was really hurt by Lori, Vallow, and Chad. And I think it's going to take them a long time to heal.
Yeah, all right. Let's look at the live shot of the courthouse steps. We're just going to stay there for a little bit, Brian, as we get ready for this. Oh, there's the courthouse, the South Court Tower. Yeah, Brandon Boudreau, a long journey for him. And then I think Kay Woodcock will be speaking as well. Kay Woodcock has testified in 3 trials, and I think this was a relief for her to be able to watch this from this point of view and support Brandon. Okay, Max, our photographer's like, live streaming. You guys are getting a great look at it, and we are just waiting for this verdict to be read. It looks like people may be speaking. I know it's like to follow him. Let's follow Max. He's waiting for someone.
Are you good to go?
Yep.
Okay, never mind. Let's not follow Max. Let's take that audio off.
I thought that was a Nike ad for a minute with shoes.
Okay, we got the advisory council. Hey. There you go.
Working with Lori Vallow.
They're not going to speak.
Go, Max, go. Robert Abernethy, Pamela Hicks, the advisory council.
Well, we know what it was like working with Lori Vallow. They're out of there.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get off that shot.
To work on any sort of a...
Oh, getting some audio though. Never mind.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Benjamin, how would you have handled that? Well, you would give us a little bit of a comment. I know you. You would say something.
I would give comment, but this a little bit disclosure. I mean, I know the advisory council people. This throughout the years, you see a lot of people in the courthouse all the time, and they're actually really great attorneys, really good people. And if they had a chance, an opportunity to actually do the case, they probably would have probably done a lot better job than Lori. But in that situation, yes. I mean, right. I'm allowed to talk. I'm a private attorney, so I can talk and I can say stuff. But when you work in the public defender's office, you're not allowed to.
Thanks, Benjamin. This is Tosh, former juror, in the last trial.
But me, what it
Let's take a listen.
To what they were going through right now, So being able to feel what they felt, not knowing anything, was pretty cool.
They'll probably go home and get kind of that information dump that you did. What's your advice to them taking it all in?
It's a lot. So just let it, before they watch it, kind of let themselves sink in to what just all happened. Because when I watched it right after, it was a lot. It was still intense. So yeah.
This is fascinating.
Okay, that was Taj, the juror from the last trial that we spoke to. We're about to hear from Brandon Boudreau right now.
Okay, Brandon Boudreau is about to speak. Thank you. That's Kenzie Beach, our Fox 10 reporter, there at the courthouse, getting set up right now. There's Kay Woodcock. All right, let's get ready to listen. Holding hands with Brandon. This is his wife, and this is Colby Ryan, Lori's son.
I prepared just a short statement that I wanted to share. Kay had something she wanted to share, and I want you guys to know that we stand united. We're still family. We always will be, regardless of the things that happened. But go ahead, Kay. Share your thought.
Okay.
And I'll share mine.
We got it. Okay, for my brother Jerry, we got the bitch again. That's for you, Jerry.
My statement is as follows. 2,078 days. I'm humbled. I can't even imagine how many hours have been spent by law enforcement and prosecutors tirelessly working to uncover the truth. The truth is that hatred, selfishness, and greed almost almost led to the end of my life. 12 strangers verified that Lori must be held accountable. I have heard the question asked, why hold this trial? She already has multiple life sentences. My response is simple. We owe it to those who are victimized and choose to follow the law to uphold justice on their behalf. So many victims never get this day. So I thank the judge and the jury who willingly put their lives on hold to complete this process. I did not enjoy sitting and giving someone who tried to kill me the chance to question me, but I owed it to Charles, to Tylee, to JJ, and to Tammy to speak because I could. I don't know the statistics of how many people never get the chance because they were killed or because we can't find the people who committed the crime. But we as a society owe it to them to move forward with prosecuting those who commit violent crimes. I've chosen in my life to be and live as a man who believes in Jesus Christ and in God. So I view my life from this lens. I heard this in this trial about loving everyone. I support this cause. However, I do not believe that all the things that were said follow that. The Savior did say, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. The beautiful part of this human experience is, as Isaiah said, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes. When we trust the Lord to do this with our lives, he can do wonders with us. I'd like to share two things that I have used in my life to help me move forward and create beauty from the ashes. The first is from Viktor Frankl. He taught there's a space in life between stimulus and response where we can choose and have freedom. It is okay to feel hatred, anger, passion, and a myriad of other feelings when life's stimulus are unexpected or unfair or both. But true freedom comes from mastering our ability to respond in our actions independent of the stimulus, to choose who we will be and to act and not to be acted upon. Secondly, I believe every human being is a child of God and has immeasurable worth. Hating a person can be like a poison to our souls. It can take away our joy and our happiness. I believe we can have enmity towards someone's actions or choices while still forgiving them for our own selves, to have more room for love and happiness and joy. Truly living this principle is a process. It takes time. But as we apply these two principles, that of choice before response and forgiveness and love and valuing others as oneself, I believe that it makes our society better. So thank you for coming and supporting me in this, for all of you who have. And we're grateful today for those who let us have our due process. So,
Brandon, would you say you've forgiven Lori?
It's a process. I will do my best. It's something that I believe if you give away your hatred to the Savior, I would tell you that there is more room for joy and love for your family, for your friends, for those who do love you. So that's the best I can share.
Brandon, do you believe Melanie should be charged in this case?
I'm not going to talk about that right now, but I appreciate the question.
What did you think that the jury came back less than 30 minutes?
I'm grateful that they did their responsibility, and I'm grateful for a verdict.
Brandon, where do you go from here?
I'll continue moving forward with my life. I have a beautiful wife. I have wonderful family. I have so much wonderful family that's waiting back there. I'll go back to anonymity, hopefully, and just live my life and be another person who tries to do the right thing in the right situation. And I want to say thank you to all the people who did the right thing, who came in, who gave up their time and participated in the process. There's a lot of people who don't get any thank yous that give up their time, and so I just want them to know I'm grateful.
Jenny, anything you want?
I am grateful that I am standing next to this man right now.
Thank you, guys.
Grateful that he's here.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Thank you, guys.
That is a powerful moment right there as you see Brandon Boudreau and his wife, Kay Woodcock, Colby Ryan, walk back up the steps to the courthouse. Really, this is a moment of justice, closure, victory for a family that has just been nearly destroyed over the past 5 years. He was almost killed. It took a few inches of difference, a bullet hitting his Tesla on October 2nd, 2019. And at the time, he already knew that something was very wrong. He went to get help immediately. He sought answers. He teamed up with Kay Woodcock to find those answers. And let's go to our panel right now. Rich Robertson, I got to ask you, seeing that, closure for you as well, being there from the beginning, seeing Brandon, mature as a husband, a father, a man, and going up to saying that he's in the process of forgiveness.
Yeah. That was it was powerful. He's kind of the Brandon that I have come to know, thoughtful, introspective, emotional. The PTSD is clear from the near-death experience. Always looking forward to where things go from here. I mean, this would be a powerful statement to be made at Lori's sentencing. I suspect it's going to be some version of that when he addresses the court at that time. He pretty well summed up everything that I think all of that family has gone through.
Rachel, your thoughts?
Nope.
Unmute.
The Brandon that spoke is the Brandon that worked with the team in Idaho and that assisted law enforcement, not just about his own case, but about working for justice for everybody. And so his statement is particularly and encapsulates the lives that were taken and the vast number of people that Chad and Lori harmed. And so it's hard not to be moved by that. And it's hard not to be humbled by watching somebody who nearly lost everything stand up and go through this process and do it with dignity and grace and compassion. So it's a powerful statement out of Brandon Boudreau, and I'm grateful to Maricopa County and the law enforcement in Arizona that they didn't just chalk it up as one more case and move on, that they gave him that opportunity to be heard.
Okay, and we are just getting ready to play that verdict reading for you all in just a little bit. Obie and Glenn will keep tabs on that, and we'll make sure that we'll have that for you shortly. Benjamin Taylor, your thoughts on what happens next? Obviously, some people ask why sentencing doesn't happen the same day, but there's a little bit of a gap.
Yes, usually sentencing is within 30 days. And a lot of times the reason why, because they do what you call a pre-sentence report. So somebody will go out there and a probation officer will go out there and talk to Lori, get her side, get her recommendation. The state, the prosecutor will make a recommendation, and ultimately the judge looks at all the recommendations from the defense, from family members, victims. So it takes a while to coordinate all this. So that's why it takes 30 days for sentencing. I think in this type of case, if they really wanted to, they could probably sentence her today. But in normal cases, and basically the judge wants to give everybody time to be able to prepare for sentencing. Because there's aggravating factors, there's mitigating factors, and you want to just give everybody a fair chance and basically notify the dates. As you heard, July 26th is sentencing, so now everybody knows and can prepare for it. It gives them a whole month to prepare.
All right, we have it. Let's listen to the verdict.
We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action, upon our oaths, do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, as to the crime of count 1, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder occurring on or about July 11, 2019, guilty. Signed, foreperson. Is this your true verdict? So say you one and all.
Yes. Let's come back out. All right, little bit of a technical difficulty there. I swear we are going to get that to you. That was the verdict from last trial. Because once I heard July 11th, it has been a day. We're going to get, but we know how it sounds. It is the same answer, guilty. We are going to get that to you in just a little bit. They're handling it right now. Judge Mel, your thoughts?
Well, I'm wondering if Lori Daybell is controlling these feedbacks. Let me share a thought. In the last, during the Vallow trial, I'd made a comment from a prosecution standpoint that there's nothing more that can be done to Lori Vallow Daybell. She was looking at life sentences in Idaho. She was looking at a life sentence in Arizona without parole. And from a prosecution standpoint, I'm sorry?
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, from a prosecution standpoint, you could see an argument. That said, I am really grateful that they went forward. Mm-hmm. I think Brandon Boudreau was a key person in this case. And even though the sentence will not affect Lori either way, she's going to get life without parole, and it will be stacked on everything else. I think it was important for Brandon's message to be heard, for the other people to be heard. I have been so impressed with Brandon Boudreau, his humility, and I think when he testified, I think that genuine love that he has in his heart shined through. So I'm grateful it went forward. I'm not surprised hearing the quick result, a little quicker than I thought, but I think it's an outstanding result.
All right, we have the verdict in the Brandon Boudreau case. Let's hear it.
All right, the clerk will read and record the verdict.
In the Superior Court of the State of Arizona, in and for the County of Maricopa, State of Arizona versus Lori Daybell, CR 2022-00-1242001. Verdict, count one. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action upon our oaths, do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, as to the crime of count one, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder occurring on or about October 2nd, 2019, as follows. Guilty. Signed, foreperson. Are these your true verdicts, so say you one and all?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes. All right, on the court's own motion, I'll ask the clerk to poll the jury.
Juror number one, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number two, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number four, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number five, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number six, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number eight, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 9, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 11, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 12, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 13, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 14, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 15, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
All right, members of the jury, I'm going to excuse you at this time.
And there it is, the guilty verdict in the final chapter for Lori Daybell. You look at her demeanor, her mannerisms, obviously Lori's upset. And I wouldn't be surprised if she speaks about this publicly. She has done a couple of interviews, and she believes that Judge Boreski has been biased against her this whole time. But, you know, we've watched this trial. What do you guys take from her mannerisms? Rachel, you've seen her in court. I'm sure you're not surprised at how she handles these things. And really, there has been lack of remorse to all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's Lori being her own lawyer, acting in this way has really put to rest some of the issues that existed up in Idaho, which was, you know, maybe she's not competent, maybe she's mentally ill. All along, at least I, as part of the team, I just knew that Lori was so profoundly self-absorbed that she couldn't hold it together in a case like this. So her attitude, her demeanor is really reflective of the Lori that caused the death of multiple people.
I don't know if we're. Go ahead.
Justin,
Go ahead.
Can you interview her? And could we be a panel for you? Like, we won't do the interview, but we would do commentary. Will she let you interview her?
No, she won't. Have I told you this story? So she took my
No.
money back in 2020 when she was in the Madison County Jail. So you remember when they used the Telmate app. And you add the person, the inmate, through the app. And so this was 2020, and she had been taken into custody. And this was just the child abandonment charges at the time. It hasn't. I don't think the kids had not been discovered yet. It was before June, and so she adds me, and I'm like, okay, I have a chance here. And then you set up a time for the appointment for the call, and so I do that, and you have to put in some money for the call, and so I do that. I put about $15. It was accepted, and all of a sudden, I have been blocked. So I guess I was deemed a dark spirit, and totally cut off the communication with me after that. And so she still owes me $15, but she owes everyone a lot more. I've tried through MCSO a few times, and she declined or just did not respond. And maybe she took this as a jab, but after Chad Daybell was sentenced to death, I reached out to MCSO and I said, "Does Lori have any comment on her husband being sentenced to the death penalty?" Nothing. And then obviously, she's done a couple of interviews, but has not chosen me or Nate Eden to talk with about this case. And I can understand why, but I've always wanted to ask the big question is why? What led you to do this? But being that she will never take accountability and never admit what she did or what she's been convicted of, it's sort of pointless. And the way I've seen her skirt around questions, it's just... it doesn't help the victims who I take more pride in being able to talk to someone like Kay Woodcock, or if I get to talk to Brandon Boudreau face to face on camera for an in-depth interview, because these people were the ones that were instrumental in getting justice. Or if I talk to a prosecutor like yourself, someone on the team, or a detective, someone that investigated this case, those are the people with the truth. And in this case, I don't think you ever get the truth from Lori. What do you think, Rich?
Well, I was going to ask Rachel, actually, based on her experience with all of this, whether she thinks that Lori really truly believes she was either completely innocent of all of this or justified in some way. Is she so self-absorbed, so delusional, not from a psychotic state, but as she convinced herself that she actually did not do this stuff?
I don't. I think she really thinks she was justified. I think she was entitled. I think she really thought she was smart enough to get away with it all. She had such confidence in her and Chad and their ability to manipulate and control things that I don't think that she thought she was innocent. I thought she believed she was entitled.
I want to add one of the things that blew me away last night. I saw an interview that was tape recorded with her birth son, who confronted her in the jail about the murder of his brother and his sister and father. It was bone chilling to me. Your listeners out there, you need to listen to that interview. She is cold-hearted, callous. She lies through her teeth, trying to cover up when her kids are dead, saying the kids are staying with somebody in Arizona. Every part of her, I think, is evil. And that interview really powerfully brought it home. I guess it was played in one of the Idaho proceedings, but it was chilling. Her own son saying, "Mother, you're lying to me. Why don't you tell me the truth?" And she lied all the way through this, lied about the whereabouts of the kids. She knows what she's doing. And I think some people, she's a sociopath. She has no conscience. And she deserves to spend the rest of her life in prison.
Yeah, I agree, Judge Mel. I have done cases with people who have true delusions and they don't switch their delusions. They don't modify their conclusions to sell themselves. And so she modifies the version of the story she's telling depending on which audience she has and what she thinks they'll agree to. And that's not the sign, that is the sign of somebody who actually knows what happened and is trying to talk their way around and out of it. People who are truly delusional, they have a narrative and they kind of stick to it. And they stick to it because that's what they believe. So Lori knows what she did was a violation of law. She just thought she could get away with it, and she thought she was entitled to do it.
Well, guys, we have 3,200 people watching right now, so we appreciate you staying on and talking to us. We do have Dave Cam ready. Dave, we've got a question from the chat box. Make sure to ask your questions. You guys have been doing a great job of it. We'll choose some of them, and we'll ask the panel.
Yes, we have a great question from Nadine McFarland. This is for Justin, but for everybody probably. Will you follow if if Melanie, the niece, gets arrested on this or her case?
You can bet I'll be following it if Melanie is charged in any way in this case. Will there be an arrest? I don't think that would be the case. There would have to be a grand jury indictment, right, guys? And then she would appear for an arraignment and plead not guilty, but sort of a long-form charge. We talked about this earlier, right? Like if there would have been a charge filed, it would have happened some time ago. But really, Trina K made everyone's ears perk up, right, Mel?
Yes. Yeah, mine sure perked up. I agree. I think Rachel pointed out earlier today, it could happen now, but so much time has gone by that and it would have made sense to probably have her a part of the conspiracy case if it was going to, at least to have her charged. So I suspect while it could happen, I'd be surprised if it does at this stage.
Benjamin, what do you think?
I mean, right now, Justin, your thing says the final chapter, right? If Melanie is charged, you're going to have to, keep the book going and have a sequel because it might not be the final chapter. It might be the final chapter for Lori, of course, but the story might not be ending. I mean, Trina K did mention it, but I kind of agree with, what Rachel said, what Judge Mel said earlier. She probably would have been charged a long time ago, but who knows? I mean, this is a high-profile case, and if new evidence comes out, and she has to charge her if new evidence comes out that does show that she was part of this. So who knows what else might come out, but I'm kind of on the fence here. I mean, I think she might not get charged because it's been so long, but who knows what the future holds for us.
Hey, I just want to give a shout out, obviously, to Dave, to Glenn, our director, working hard back there. We're all kind of shuffling things around. Glenn, if you have a moment, bite one in our thought folder. I want to show the audience here. I was just listening to the presser, if you will, the comments that were made by Kay and Brandon after the verdict outside court. One of the things, and we're going to play this bite in just a moment, one of the things that really stuck out was you had Colby, you had Kay, and you had Brandon all standing together, and you'll hear them say, look, we're all standing here united. And I think, these are the kinds of things that bring, family members who may not have communicated, as closely as maybe they could have over the years. And unfortunately, a tragedy like this brings them together. But Glenn played this bite, Brandon getting really emotional, reacting to the moment that he heard the verdict in the case against Lori. Take a listen.
My statement is as follows. 2,078 days. I'm humbled. I can't even imagine how many hours have been spent by law enforcement and prosecutors tirelessly working to uncover the truth. The truth is that hatred, selfishness, and greed almost led to the end of my life. 12 strangers verified that Lori must be held accountable. I have heard the question asked, why hold this trial? She already has multiple life sentences. My response is simple. We owe it to those who are victimized and choose to follow the law to uphold justice on their behalf. So many victims never get this day. So I thank the judge and the jury who willingly put their lives on hold to complete this process. I did not enjoy sitting and giving someone who tried to kill me the chance to question me, but I owed it to Charles, to Tylee, to JJ, and to Tammy to speak because I could. I don't know the statistics of how many people never get the chance because they were killed or because we can't find the people who committed the crime. But we as a society owe it to them to move forward with prosecuting those who commit violent crimes.
All right, now we got questions coming in. Dave, we got one about being a prosecutor. I think, Rachel could answer this one.
Yeah, great question from Hiding in Bev's Bangs. How does Rachel like the prosecutor being in her presence and remaining calm and focused?
I think she's frozen.
Oh, Rachel's frozen.
Oh, Rachel is frozen. Let's ask the judge. He's done it all.
What's the question again?
It's how does anyone like the prosecutor being in her presence and remaining calm and focused?
I think that's the secret to her effectiveness. To not get rattled, to be very compelling but emotional, speak with commitment, look the jury in the eye, and carefully lay out the case as she did. That's what made it so effective, and the very effectiveness she had, we didn't find in Lori. Trying to interject things that she knew couldn't come in the case, all of the games that she tried to play. But that's the sign, that's the mark of an effective prosecutor, to have the case organized, to lay it out, to put the pieces of the puzzle together, and then with emotion to persuade the jury to do your duty and to convict the person for the crime that they committed.
All right. Hey, with that said, I want us to take a quick break. We're going to come back. Rachel had to leave for the day. If you guys, panel, if you need to get out of here, I thank you so much for your time. We're going to take a quick break as we get things in order. We hope to take Kenzie Beach with Fox 10 after this, talk about what went on outside the courthouse, the vibe of it all, maybe get some other special guests on the phone as well. But everyone watching, we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. Thank you to more than 2,000 still watching with us right now. We also have live coverage on our Fox 10 newscast as well. We are covering this thing from wall to wall, Kenzie Beach at the courthouse. We're here with our panel. We've got Rich Robertson of R3 Investigations, Benjamin Taylor, criminal defense attorney here in Phoenix, and Judge Mel McDonald. Rich, I know this is still like settling in for us. We didn't expect such a quick deliberation today, and then to see Brandon speak. Not a lot of people have gotten to know him because we have not heard him speak publicly, except maybe just one interview. You say that really this guy hasn't changed at all, and to be so patient. I mean, there was a chance where we didn't know if she would be charged in this case. We knew that Gilbert PD had investigated and recommended charges for her and Chad, but this was really such a long wait.
Was not even really talked about. From the news coverage of it was focused on the kids, understandably, being missing and stuff. And I know that in conversations I had with multiple reporters over time, there were so many players and so many different things that were happening that it was hard to compress them all into 1-minute stories. And so they were picking and choosing. And the attempt on Brandon, because nobody was killed, really got shuffled off into the background.
I'm renaming it.
So there was not really a lot of discussion or coverage or mention of the attempted murder of Brandon. So it wasn't until we got past all the trials on these other matters that this one kind of bubbled up, and we realized what the implications were of the attempt on his life in the context of everything else. So part of it was just because there were so many crimes and so many different crime scenes, and Brandon was the sole survivor.
Hey, Judge, we were talking about this earlier, communications between Lori and Chad. A lot of people don't know if they've had communications. You would think that convicted felons at two different, prison facilities or jails will not be able to talk to each other, but does that have to be something that's really documented and ordered? I don't know if that's happened behind the scenes, but I mean, the thought is that they shouldn't be speaking to each other.
Yeah, during the recess, Rich and I were talking in Benjamin, and some new information came out yesterday about phone calls that were taking place in this critical time frame, and lengthy conversations with Melanie on the phone, which I think it was a real eye-opener. And then hearing the prosecutor talk about this ongoing investigation and her closing argument, I think Melanie Boudreau, Pulaski, has to be concerned now. I think that there may be a shift, and I would not be surprised, based upon the arguments from yesterday, that something may happen in the future.
Let's see if we can get our poll question up right now. I am going to read it off for you, though. Obviously, we know what happened. Lori Daybell's guilty of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder. 7,000 people voted, basically 6.9K on the vote. 97% saying that she would be found guilty. Only 1% said not guilty. 2% said no verdict due to hung jury. But basically 97% called it there. Benjamin, let's go back to not presenting a defense. Would that have made any difference?
I think the evidence was so strong either way. Lori Daybell had an uphill battle. The evidence is there. So, if she had presented a defense, if she had just stood there and said silent for the whole thing, jurors, they want to fight. They want to see the prosecutor and the defense go at it, right? That's what they're here for. That's what they've seen on TV, right? And the fact that, in this trial, Lori Daybell didn't really do that much of a cross-examination. She didn't call up any witnesses. That's why you see this quick verdict. They didn't see the fight in her. And there's nothing to, rebut any of the evidence that the prosecutor, Trina Kay, did. So, not surprising. I think we all knew that this would be a quick verdict, but Yeah, I mean, you have to put on the defense. You have to do something to show the jurors that add doubt to their head, because the prosecutor has to say beyond a reasonable doubt. That's the law. So if you can show some doubt in one or two jurors' heads, that will help you at least get a hung juror, and a hung jury is a victory for a defense attorney.
All right, let's take the Dave cam real quick. I want to see if we can get some more questions out, but you're looking at that poll right there. 97% of you said Lori Daybell would be found guilty, and that was correct. Go ahead, Dave.
This is from Sharon Delaney. No doubt she will appeal. How often are those successful?
Very low probability of success on appeal with this case. Remember, when she represents herself, she's got to make the record. She's got to pose objections and challenge evidence. That wasn't done in this case. If she had had a defense attorney, her chances would have been better. But I think her chances on appeal at either of these two cases are 1%, and that may be high.
Let's check right now. We've got Kenzie Beach on the phone, Fox 10 News reporter. Kenzie, can you hear us? Nothing there. Oh, we'll figure that out. No, do you see something?
It switched on us. Technical issues, but
1 second.
first source switched on us.
We're doing this on the fly. We're doing this on the fly. Stand by, everyone. Kenzie, we see your shot. We'll get to you in just a moment. Kenzie, can you hear me?
I got you, Justin. Can you hear me?
Yes. Just you're outside the Maricopa
Okay,
County
great.
Superior Courthouse right now. Hopefully everybody can hear Kenzie right now. Just an emotional afternoon as Brandon Boudreau just spoke to the press really for the first time publicly. And you can see it on his face that this has been such a long journey. Just take us through those moments.
Yeah, he actually spoke to us and counted the exact amount of days that he's waited for his day in court, for his turn to share his side of the story and how this has impacted him and his family. He had a written statement that he read to us out here. I do also want to mention it was a very quick deliberation for this jury, only about 30 minutes. But when Brandon came out here, he answered maybe a lot of questions that a lot of people have. Why have this trial if she's already been convicted for several life sentences? He said this is about not just closure, but for his other victim, Lori Vallow's other victims. He said, you know, he took the stand in this case. He did not like being questioned by the woman that attempted to kill him, but he knew he had to take the stand and wanted to be the voice for Charles, Tylee, and JJ in this case. I don't know if you guys have a soundbite that you can pull from him, but it's just very emotional and impactful just how this has impacted him and his family.
Yeah, and you guys were also hearing not just from Brandon, but a former juror that you had spoken to in the last trial. That says a lot when they come back and want to see justice unfold. They have been touched by this when they knew nothing about this case just months ago. We're talking about Tosh Reed Tucker, who spoke to the press as well.
Yeah, most definitely. There were actually a couple of jurors from the previous trial that were here today to watch this and sit on the other side, but we did speak to Tosh Reed Tucker after, and that was pretty incredible to hear, you know, what she had to say and what this has been like being on the other side of the courtroom. They said that really supporting the family was also closure of being a juror, just how much pressure in that moment, and you don't know everything else surrounding it. Taj also gave advice to the jurors in this trial about what it's going to be like when they go home, and just kind of the information dump, knowing that she's been convicted in several other cases.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And there had to be a vibe across the courthouse knowing that deliberations took about 15 minutes or so. I mean, the family members had to rush on over. You know, Kay Woodcock was there as well, Kobe Ryan, Lori Daybell's son. I mean, this was a fast deliberation. What was the mood like?
I mean, there's kind of that saying, when it's a fast deliberation, you can assume it's a guilty verdict. But when it's quick like that, you know, for this jury, there wasn't a handful of them that were maybe undecided. Now, we don't know that exactly, but a very quick deliberation. I also do want to add that in previous cases, the jury typically comes down the court steps right here behind me, and we're able to ask, you know, them questions, see which ones do or do not want to talk to us. But today was a little different. They actually brought the jury out a separate entrance that we were unaware of, but we do know that the jury typically leaves in a big charter bus, and we saw that charter bus go come around the backside of the courthouse. So we weren't able to speak to any jurors in this case today.
Yeah, the big question is, will any of them do their research right away and want to speak about this? I'm sure they are going to be, their jaw will be on the floor when they know all the context of this case. Kenzie Beach, thank you so much for hustling over there, getting all that information and talking to us.
Yeah, thanks, Justin.
Okay, and we also want to bring our panel back on, our last three guys here. Thank you, guys. Mel, Rich, Benjamin, it has been quite a journey with you three, and we want to thank Rachel Smith as well, who had to jump off. You guys have busy lives, busy schedules, but for you guys to provide insight to the viewers, 3,000 are watching right now, and your insight, your experience has just been incredible. Even the personal ties, experience in the courtroom. We appreciate you so much.
Appreciate the opportunity.
Well, thank you.
Good luck to you, and it's been an honor to be here. You guys have done a terrific job.
Yeah.
For your listeners, the interview I referenced was Kobe Ryan with his mother. Look that up if you want to see something fascinating that gives you a picture of Lori Vallow Daybell. The interview with her son that was played in the Idaho case. Look that up and listen to it. It lets you know where she has ended up and how depraved she is. But thank you, and it's been an honor being a part of this panel and working with these outstanding panelists. Thank you.
We'll see you guys for sentencing, for sure.
Yeah,
right?
This panel's the best in the business, and you too, Justin and Obi, and everybody at Fox 10. I mean, you did a great job covering both trials and great analysis. So keep up the great work too.
Thank you, guys. All right, we'll see you soon. And Judge Mel, talking about that interview, or I should say that conversation between Colby Ryan and his mom. I mean, that was a big part of our No Remorse documentary, where we talked about just, this this mother and son, and at the time, the horrible news of JJ and Tylee being found on Chad Daybell's property. And Colby has been through so much as well. It's clear. I mean, so to hear that's a big part of the story, and you can bet that the jurors will go home and at some point they'll discover that.
Yeah, well, we learned with the last jury, they did it moments after leaving court. I think even in the waiting room, they were Googling on their phones while they waited for the bus to show up to take them back to their cars. And it's only natural, right? You want to, we knew that there was a lot left on the table in this case. Stuff that really wasn't admissible, didn't pertain to the case, obviously, at this particular case. But we knew there was so much more out there, and we're all curious by nature. And much like we saw in the last Arizona trial, there is interest in this case, especially after you learn about it. I mean, the former juror, Tasri Tucker, I mean, she was live streaming on her phone while she's doing the interview with Kenzie and the other reporters, because I think she realizes how much interest in it. She even told us that I think it was her grandmother who, when her grandmother learned that she was a juror on the case, like how excited her grandma was.
Grandma knew everything.
Right. Her grandma knew everything. And it was almost like that she made that connection with her grandma after the case. And they had spent time together watching everything that had been published by us and others before the trial. So, and we know that there's a fascination with trials anyway. We had several high-profile trials happening right now.
Let's listen to that Tosh Reed Tucker soundbite, bite 2.
Being, you were on the jury last time,
Yeah.
but now watching this trial, being here today, what brought you here? Kind of walk us through your thoughts.
I wanted to see what was on, what it was like to be on the opposite side. It felt a lot better being on this side, being able to support the family again. And I knew what it was like. Nobody in the crowd knew but me what it was like to what they were going through right now, So being able to feel what they felt, not knowing anything, was pretty cool.
They'll probably go home and get kind of that information dump
Yeah.
that you did. What's your advice to them taking it all in?
It's a lot. So just let it, before they watch it, kind of let themselves sink in to what just all happened. Because when I watched it right after, it was a lot. It was still intense. So yeah.
Tosh Reed Tucker there, juror number 8 in the trial regarding Charles Vallow's murder. It was great to talk to her too when she came here and sat down with us face to face. Really just seems like an authentic, just great person. And she came here multiple days this trial to, outside of work to see what was going on. And she's now become an expert on the case. I think she's still trying to grasp what has happened here.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot to absorb just in the Idaho trials alone. I mean, you talk about the conversation that was played between Brandon and Lori. Think about the conversations that Lori had with her sister, with Melanie Gibb. I mean, there was a time, there was a call between Lori and her sister, and how emotional her sister was, but how non-emotional Lori was. And that, I think, just hearing that, again, we didn't have cameras in there, but just hearing that, I think will send chills down your spine when she's questioning, where are the kids? Why won't you tell them where the kids are? Same thing with her son. Colby. Mom, why won't you tell them where the kids are? It's unfathomable to think that as a mother, you could do this, but then continue to lie and string your family members along, people who were close to your children, people who, were connected to them. You can say, well, the bond between a mother and her children is much stronger than anybody else. Fine. But, family's family. And we didn't, obviously these two trials, were never going to be that emotional. We're never going to have that connection, because I think the children change the parameters and change kind of the guardrails in this. And no disrespect to Brandon. I mean, obviously he's a father and he has kids to go home to. But when you're talking about the murder of children, it takes on a whole different meaning. And so for anybody who has any interest in this, may just be picking up on this saga, say in the last 6 months or so, I encourage you to go back and really, look at the coverage and look at what was said and presented in court in those Idaho trials, because it'll give you a window into who this woman is. And we talk a lot about it, but you got to hear it. You got to see it for yourself. And again, Chad is just as bad, but man,
death row. And very well, if the death penalty was on the table in Idaho for Lori, if it was not removed, could have been a death sentence there.
Oh, without question. I don't even think that I don't even think that they would have had any hesitation, and I don't think that any jury would have had any issue moving forward with the death penalty in her case, because as we all know, those of you watching on the stream who follow trials, child killers are treated much differently and should be. And, child killers are perceived as being the worst of the worst in all regards. And so I don't think it would have been difficult for prosecutors in Idaho to find a jury that would have taken issue with sentencing her to death for her crimes.
Yeah, actually, let's listen to the verdict one more time. I think some people are just joining us. We have nearly 3,000 watching. Let's listen to that again.
All right, the clerk will read and record the verdict.
In the Superior Court of the State of Arizona, in and for the County of Maricopa, State of Arizona versus Lori Daybell, CR 2022-00-1242-001. Verdict, count one. We, the jury, duly impaneled and sworn in the above entitled action upon our oaths, do find the defendant, Lori Daybell, as to the crime of count one, conspiracy to commit first-degree murder occurring on or about October 2nd, 2019, as follows. Guilty. Signed, foreperson. Are these your true verdicts, so say you one and all?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. All right, on the court's own motion, I'll ask the clerk to poll the jury.
Juror number one, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number two, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number four, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number five, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number six, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number eight, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number nine, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 11, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 12, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 13, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 14, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
Juror number 15, is this your true verdict?
Yes.
All right, members of the jury, I'm going to excuse you at this time.
Okay, so for those of you who have not heard it, not seen it, the guilty verdict for Lori Vallow Daybell. And standing by, got on my phone right now on speakerphone, my friend Gigi McKelvey with Pretty Lies and Alibis, great podcaster, true crime YouTuber who has covered this case as well alongside me from Idaho to Arizona, back and forth, you name it. Someone was in that courtroom today, has been in this trial, the last trial as well for Charles Vallow. And we just heard that verdict read out again. Lori Daybell is now a 3-time convicted murderer, as far as 3 trials, convicted of I have to think in my head and list it out. I mean, that's bad, right? So her children, J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan, the conspiracy to murder Tammy Daybell, Chad's first wife, her 4th husband, Charles Vallow, who really started this case off, sounding the alarm, trying to get her help, and then the attempted murder here, Brandon Boudreau, who was shot at by Alex Cox. Gigi, what are your thoughts coming out? Is it surreal?
Oh, yeah, Justin, it is. You know, it's very full circle. I mean, we just had the 5-year anniversary of when the kids were found. Last week, I believe, while the trial was going on? You know, and then you think about it, this is the last trial for her. This is it. And, you know, you're going through all of the convictions. And one thing to point out is by FBI standards, Lori Daybell qualifies as a serial killer. 3 or more murders with a cooling off period. So, you know, very full circle day. Brandon, I noticed when the verdict was read, no big reaction, just very quietly dropped his head. His wife touched him. He kind of breathed out heavily. And it was just good to see that last verdict rendered where she's been held accountable now for every single crime she has committed since she met Chad Daybell.
Yeah, it is truly amazing. I saw videos. We were watching the stream. You were on the courthouse steps, and I think you said hello to Brandon, and just I'm sure you wished him well. What was that like?
Yeah, I've seen Brandon off and on, and just wanted to just say hello. I mean, it was just a moment where, you know, people sort of. I've heard the comment, why even bother? And Brandon mentioned that in his statement to the media. Why bother? She's already convicted, because he was within inches of being victim number 5. And I think after that verdict, I just wanted to let him know that our community, the people that have covered this for years, we're celebrating alongside him. It's not really a celebration of sorts. I mean, this is really horrible stuff, but justice served. And it was very full circle for me to be able to just shake his hand and wish him well. And I hope that he's able to move on with some peace in his life, because he deserves it. You know, he's been such a pillar of strength for Kay and Larry Woodcock, identifying JJ right after his wedding. You know, the man's character, just what we know, speaks volumes. And I hope today gives him some resolution so that he can move on. And, you know, once these verdicts are rendered, Justin, I think there is a different grieving period where you don't have trials that are in the ether and you're having these hearings. I think that it gives some finality to that part, but then you have to work through this next part of just moving on with this horrific experience, you know, for Brandon that nearly took his life.
Yes, exactly. I mean, just inches away from his head.
Yeah.
And what was it like seeing this jury come back after a 15-minute deliberation? I mean, by the time they were actually in the room and deliberations had started, they settled in. I mean, 15 minutes. I mean, the shock. We were all just like, "What? This is real?
Yeah.
The verdict is in?"
No, and I tell you, I just now found out from you that it was 15 minutes. I had 27 on my little stopwatch, but you know, I was kind of thinking, did they go in there yesterday and do a show of hands and say, hey, let's go home, get a good night's sleep, then we'll fill out the paperwork tomorrow? But, you know, I tell you what, having Brandon go first, and then the next to the last witness being Lieutenant Hermosillo, who really brought that conspiracy home with the video of Lori there when the tire is being brought in and brought out of the storage unit, able to just kind of really show the visual of that conspiracy, in addition to Trina Kay's beautiful prosecution of this case. I was like, it's going to be a quick verdict. 15 minutes wasn't even the same zip code of how long I thought it would take, but they were very sure. They came in heads up, looked right at her, and they were ready. I think that, you know, I was a little worried because I thought, well, I mean, we have the video, but does it really show it? But sitting in that courtroom and watching it play out, watching the jury's reactions when they saw that video, Justin, one juror's mouth flew wide open and he turned to the left and to the right and had to put his notebook up over his face because he was so shocked to finally get that visual connection of the conspiracy with Lori. So very different atmosphere watching it in court. But by the end of the day yesterday, I thought this is going to be quick.
Yeah, that was extremely quick. They go home at 3 o'clock yesterday. They didn't even. I wish I could be a fly on the wall to see if they, you know, raised their hands first, picked the four-person, and went home for the night. But this was just wow. And then to see her reaction, the lack of, you know, the remorse we've never seen. And then she's talking about she wants to get to Idaho. She wants to go back to Idaho as soon as possible.
Right. You know, one thing I noticed about her at this trial is this defeated personality. Just that she gave off she just made me feel like at this point she was just kind of like whatever. I mean, she's been convicted so many times. This is nothing new for her. But especially when Ray Hermosillo was on the stand, we were all talking about how she sunk lower and lower into her chair as his testimony went on. Just a very different Lori to me. I mean, she did her cross-exam. She got snarky sometimes, but overall, just her body language, you could see she was over it. She was ready for this to be done. I think she probably knew it would be guilty. The world is conspiring against her. But yeah, it was very interesting for me to watch her compared to that first trial to now. And being at every trial she's had, this one was different. She just, she was over it.
Gigi, I mean, any last thoughts? It feels sort of bittersweet. It's surreal. Me and you have, you know, caught up several times, talked about this case. Nate Eaton as well, and just sort of all right, ready for the next one? Ready for the next one? This just happened. That happened. What's next? You know, curveballs across the way, and now, I mean, there is a finality to it before sentencing.
There really is, and you know, I have to say, you and Nate were the ones I watched before. Me and my best friend Fruit Loop launched this podcast on the day the kids were found. We knew that this was the case we wanted to cover, and your coverage, Nate Eaton's coverage, was such an inspiration for us because it was ethical. We never had to worry about where the sources were coming from. It was just, you guys were amazing. But yeah, there is that finality in that for those of us that have covered this case extensively. I mean, my kids were very little when this case started. You know, I have one that moved out of town. You know, she was 14 when we started. She lives in New Orleans now. So a lot of our lives have been, for the last 5 years, consumed by this case. So to be able to say it's over, every conviction, was rendered, and man, for me, I just hope more than anything that every single person that knew and loved these victims, and Brandon, who was a victim or number 5, he's still a victim, but was nearly the fifth death. I hope everybody can move on with a sense of resolution on the judicial side, and then figure out things as they go along, and eventually the memories become sweet, as opposed to the bitterness that Chad and Lori have given every family that's been affected by this.
Gigi, thank you so much. Pretty Lies and Alibis will be seeing your coverage shortly, I bet. Get some rest, take it in, and we'll talk soon.
Thank you, Justin.
All right. Okay, Gigi McKelvey there. Somebody just asked, what is next for you, Justin? I don't know. I think I'm done. Now I'm done, right? Like, after this sentencing, there's no...
As far as we know, there's no more
news.
Documentaries being made on this case. I mean, there might be one more. I'm sure people will try and squeeze one out. But, yeah, I mean, we'll go back to our regular lives.
I will try to get Nate on. I mean, the man is busy. He's probably doing his live streams right now, and I'm texting with him throughout the day. Let's listen. If you missed that press conference after the verdict, Brandon Boudreau and Kay Woodcock and Colby Ryan outside the courthouse, let's listen to that.
For my
You're all right. I prepared just a short statement that I wanted to share. Kay had something she wanted to share, and I want you guys to know that we stand united.
I got it now.
We're still family. We always will be, regardless of the things that happened. But go ahead, Kay. Share your thought.
Okay.
And I'll share mine.
We got it. Okay. For my brother Jerry. We got the bitch again. That's for you, Jerry.
My statement is as follows. 2,078 days. I'm humbled. I can't even imagine how many hours have been spent by law enforcement and prosecutors tirelessly working to uncover the truth. The truth is that hatred, selfishness, and greed almost led to the end of my life. 12 strangers verified that Lori must be held accountable. I have heard the question asked, why hold this trial? She already has multiple life sentences. My response is simple. We owe it to those who are victimized and choose to follow the law to uphold justice on their behalf. So many victims never get this day. So I thank the judge and the jury who willingly put their lives on hold to complete this process. I did not enjoy sitting and giving someone who tried to kill me the chance to question me, but I owed it to Charles, to Tylee, to JJ, and to Tammy to speak because I could. I don't know the statistics of how many people never get the chance because they were killed or because we can't find the people who committed the crime. But we as a society owe it to them to move forward with prosecuting those who commit violent crimes. I've chosen in my life to be and live as a man who believes in Jesus Christ and in God. So I view my life from this lens. I heard this in this trial about loving everyone. I support this cause. However, I do not believe that all the things that were said follow that. The Savior did say, many will say to me in that day, Lord, Lord, have we not prophesied in thy name, and in thy name have cast out devils, and in thy name done many wonderful works? And then will I profess unto them, I never knew you. Depart from me, ye that work iniquity. The beautiful part of this human experience is, as Isaiah said, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes. When we trust the Lord to do this with our lives, he can do wonders with us. I'd like to share two things that I have used in my life to help me move forward and create beauty from the ashes. The first is from Viktor Frankl. He taught there's a space in life between stimulus and response where we can choose and have freedom. It is okay to feel hatred, anger, passion, and a myriad of other feelings when life's stimulus are unexpected. or unfair or both. But true freedom comes from mastering our ability to respond in our actions, independent of the stimulus, to choose who we will be and to act and not to be acted upon. Secondly, I believe every human being is a child of God and has immeasurable worth. Hating a person can be like a poison to our souls. It can take away our joy and our happiness. I believe we can have enmity towards someone's actions or choices while still forgiving them for our own selves, to have more room for love and happiness and joy. Truly living this principle is a process. It takes time. But as we apply these two principles, that of choice before response and forgiveness and love and valuing others as oneself, I believe that it makes our society better. So thank you for coming and supporting me in this, for all of you who have. And we're grateful today for those who let us have our due process. So,
Brandon, would you
thank
say
you.
you've forgiven Lori?
It's a process. I will do my best. It's something that I believe if you give away your hatred to the Savior, I would tell you that there is more room for joy and love for your family, for your friends, for those who do love you. So that's the best I can share.
Brandon, do you believe Melanie should be charged in this case?
I'm not going to talk about that right now, but I appreciate the question.
What did you think that the jury came back less than 30 minutes?
I'm grateful that they did their responsibility, and I'm grateful for a verdict.
Brandon, where do you go from here?
I'll continue moving forward with my life. I have a beautiful wife. I have wonderful family. I have so much wonderful family that's waiting back there. I'll go back to anonymity, hopefully, and just live my life and be another person who tries to do the right thing in the right situation. And I want to say thank you to all the people who did the right thing, who came in, who gave up their time and participated in the process. There's a lot of people who don't get any thank yous that give up their time, and so I just want them to know I'm grateful.
Jenny, anything you want?
I am grateful that I am standing next to this man right now.
Thank you,
Grateful
guys.
that he's here.
Yeah, thank you. Have a great day.
All right. Well, there you have it. That was Brandon Boudreau and his wife, Kay Woodcock, Colby Ryan, of course, Lori's oldest son. All three standing in unity there. I don't know, about 20 minutes after the verdict had been read and they were outside. Obviously, Brandon becoming very emotional, understandably so, because, he's been through a lot. We've talked a lot about this over the last couple of weeks, but we learned extensively yesterday in Trina Kay's closing arguments that Brandon was instrumental in this investigation, in all of the investigations in 2019 and through 2020 to help law enforcement piece together this entire complicated and unfortunate situation regarding Lori and Chad and the children. Obviously, Tammy Daybell, Charles. We can go over the timeline again, but Brandon was shot at in October of 2019, and he was fully aware of the shooting that occurred with Charles in the summer, and that was a lot of the reason why he initially told authorities on the morning of the shooting when asked, who do you think would want to shoot at you? And he's like, I think I know. And then, of course, that starts this roller coaster ride, and law enforcement, I think in the coming months after that, had their hands full trying to tie everything together, learn who these people were, and why they were doing what they were doing. So again, you can understand, his emotions. He's been waiting a long time for this. There were some people that thought, Brandon's not going to get this case. That they've got Lori where they want her. They've already convicted her. Even after the last Arizona trial, there was, talk that maybe they wouldn't pursue his case, or maybe Lori would plead in the case. But finally, he gets justice. It took the jury maybe 15 minutes. It's hard to say at this point. How quickly they did it, but clearly they walked into that room this morning discussed for the first time among themselves this case, the evidence in this case, and clearly all of them were on the same page, which says a lot about Trina Kay and the case she put forward. She knows this case back and forth, in and out. She had already worked on the previous trial, and in 1 week's time, this time last week, we were listening to Brandon on the stand. So in 1 week's time, they presented a case, and in 15 minutes or so, the jury reached a verdict. So again, thank you to the 2,800 people watching currently. We've followed this. If you're wondering where Lum is, we are formulating a plan for the later shows, working right now to figure out how we cover this for the evening shows here on Fox 10 here in Phoenix. I can tell you that we just got word that our Kenzie Beach, who was outside court this morning, was able to speak to a juror just moments ago. So we are looking forward to getting you that sound, playing for you. That we'll obviously post it on YouTube. We'll have it on our website. Justin will tweet that out as soon as that gets back into our station. That's something that we obviously want to hear. I know a lot of you watching would love to hear that, because again, this is really this is interesting to all of us, as I'm sure it is to you, to know exactly what they were thinking. As we learned in the last trial with the jurors that we spoke to, wanting to know, all right, you didn't know much about the case. How quickly did you get on your phones and start Googling? Because again, so much about this saga was not presented in this case. So you have 12 people, 16 in all, with 12 people who are learning, as we are day by day in this case, and learning about this saga, but yet knowing there's still a lot they don't know. And one of the jurors in the last case said they were Googling as soon as they walked out of the courtroom and were waiting for the bus. They were on their phones going, who is this Lori Vallow woman? Who is Lori Daybell? Why is the media so interested? And, now, and it's understandable why there's so much interest in this case. So again, Brandon, I know Lum is working to get him.
Everybody this whole time?
Yeah. We wrapped up the presser. We were talking about Brandon's emotion. I didn't want to leave the 3,000 just kind of hanging, because
at some point we have to say
we do. Like I said, we're formulating our plan moving forward.
Okay.
I did let them know we're waiting on that jury or the juror.
Yeah, what's the deal with that? So,
well, we know that she spoke to him. Like I said, we're waiting for her to feed it back and bring it back. Hopefully, it's not more than
Kenzie spoke to a juror.
That's what we understand, is Kenzie got a juror outside of court a little while ago. At least that's what the team had informed me. So we're hoping, maybe, and I would imagine that's a juror that came up to her or came up to the media, because as Kenzie told us in our live hit earlier, unlike a traditional, I guess, jury, when you're excused, you go down, there's a bus, they take you to a parking lot that's down the road where everybody parks their cars. That's where we got the 3 jurors, last time. And my understanding is that bus picked them up in a different direction or a different location of the court. So they didn't come out that one side that they normally come out of. So somehow this juror connected.
He went out the back way.
Yeah. So kudos to them, right? I mean, that's maybe they wanted to speak on it. Maybe they just realized how big of a case this was and the high interest that there was. And again, the relatable part of the saga is what happened in Idaho. From a human perspective, that's really where I think all of us can agree that's where the real tragedy started, and maybe they're just getting briefed on that and felt like they wanted to speak. So hopefully we can get that soon. But like I said, if it's not on this stream, it'll be on YouTube. You'll tweet it out.
Yeah. Can I get Glenn? Is my mic on? Yeah. Okay. People were saying they couldn't hear me, but that's good. So the plan is that we're gonna have team coverage today. We'll be live at 4:00 in our newscast, talking about just the big news, the guilty verdict, the final guilty verdict as far as Lori Daybell is concerned. And then what's next as far as sentencing for her case, July 25th?
I believe 25th is what I heard, yeah.
And then We'll be live at 5:30, and we'll just keep on carrying this on. We'll have an on the record episode. And trust me, Brittany Hennick. Brittany stays on top of this. Shout out to Brittany Hennick. She will tag me and remind me of everything that she has asked. And I am waiting to get a hold of Nate when we can get him on and get his thoughts. But he's obviously dealing with coverage out there at the courthouse still. There could be some lingering folks. Who knows who else, other jurors that may have actually spoken. But it has been about an hour or so. So you think that they've got to start doing their Google searches, going on YouTube or going on Netflix or whatnot. They're going home for the day. And but I think some jurors, like, they need that breath. They need that break to just debrief. And then maybe tonight or tomorrow, they'll be like, okay, let's see, what was I, let's learn about this case that I was on.
It's going to take time. There's no question. With the documentaries, our coverage over the last 5 years, there's going to be a lot in, filling in those gaps that we know there were plenty of gaps in the trial, in this trial of Brandon Boudreau's shooting. A lot of overlap. Again, Hermosillo, right? Like, if you just Google his name, he comes up in all of that. I mean, he has so much information on this case, and I know he was around. He was not called to testify in this first Arizona trial, but he was there. He followed it. I think he wanted to see it through to the end. And then, of course, he was second to the last witness in the trial 2 days ago. So, and maybe Trina Kay, I don't know. Well, we're interested to see if she ever speaks on this.
Hey, your guys' wish is my command. I have East Idaho News Nate Eaton on the phone, taking over the stream. Everybody's watching, saying your name, saying you brought donuts, and that's the reason why this 15-minute deliberation went down. How you feeling, man?
Yeah, it happened fast. I didn't think it happened that quick, but then again, a lot of people weren't surprised it happened so fast. This was one of those things that I'll give you some inside knowledge. I was actually chatting with somebody in line when I saw the judge's assistant walk out of the courtroom and turn to the bailiff who was guarding the door, and I saw her say, "We have a verdict." And she was the one that was signed in to remain with the jury. So she could have said, "We have a question," or "We have a problem, we have an issue." But when she said, "We have a verdict," I immediately loudly said, "I think we have a verdict." Probably shouldn't have done that in case it was false. But and then the public information officer came over and did confirm it. And, it moved pretty quick. Once we were inside the courtroom, things got moving, as Judge Boreski has the tendency to do. And then outside after, I'm sure you carried the Brandon Boudreau speaking and sharing his thoughts. This has been a long journey. And here we are, 6 years almost later from the day of that shooting, and the verdict is finally in.
You asked Brandon about forgiveness, right? And Brandon said that he's trying.
Yeah, he said it's a process. In his statement, he did mention the fact that forgiveness, it takes work and, whatnot. He did refer to Lori's statement, too, that he does believe in love. Or I don't remember, I'm paraphrasing exactly what he said, but something about he does believe in love, but he didn't agree with anything else she said. And he said it's a process. So it sounds like he's working toward trying to forgive her. I don't know if he quite has. And I'm sure sitting this trial every day has brought up a bunch of feelings, emotions, whatever, seeing her daily. But it sounds like he's working toward that. And he wants to get back to having a life in the quiet. He doesn't like being in the spotlight. He wants to continue on with his life, raise his kids, and move past this.
And do you think that, were you surprised to hear Melanie's name a lot, Melanie Pawlowski? I mean, Trina Kay's made it clear this is still an open investigation.
Yes, I was. And the fact that it was mentioned multiple times and that Trina Kay did not shy away from it in her closing arguments, saying Melanie is involved in multiple investigations. That, to me, was one of the big headlines out of this whole trial. I don't know if many people are surprised by the guilty verdict, but the fact that Melanie remains under investigation. Now, does that mean that they'll indict her next week? They're going to convene a grand jury? Or does it mean that in Chad's case, they say, yeah, we investigated her. We just didn't think there was enough solid stuff there to have an actual verdict, which they did say, you remember back in 2021, I believe 22, they said, we don't have enough. We think that if we tried Chad, there wouldn't be enough there to get a verdict. and we, we just won't pursue it any further. Melanie's a different story. She's not in prison on death row. She's out.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see what happens with that. We thought that this was the final chapter. But maybe it's not. Maybe there's going to be a prologue, an epilogue, whatever they call it, after the chapter.
Yeah, we may have jinxed it calling this the final chapter. Final chapter for Lori, though, who really wants to get back to Idaho, right? We're talking about sentencing. The sentencing is for July 25th. And this would be for both cases. I wanted to get that clarified.
Yes, yeah, he said it'd be for both cases, and Trina had to go consult with Kay, who's the victim in that other case, and Brandon to see if they could both make it that day in the courtroom. And they said they could be there for that day. And they said that they need several hours. So it's going to be 9 to noon, and it's going to be the victims will speak. Lori will have a chance to have her say. Maybe she won't say much. As you mentioned, she's anxious to get out of here, and she wanted to waive her pre-sentence investigation, which the judge said no. I will tell you, in Idaho, she did not cooperate with the investigator. In Idaho, they tried to do it. This is a report where you want to cooperate with them, so the judge will give you less time. Well, she realizes that she's got nothing to lose, and so, she doesn't care, it sounds like. Maybe she'll cooperate, I doubt it. Then she will have that sentencing, and then within 30 days of the sentencing, it sounds like they will have her extradited back to Idaho.
So by August 25th, she will be back in Idaho at Pocatello Women's Correctional Center, right? I mean, we've been there, and I don't know if
just in time for the winter, just in time for the cold months. She's here in the summer, there in the winter.
That is just, that's a quick extradition. We weren't sure when she was going to get extradited from Idaho to Arizona on these conspiracy charges, but it looks like within 30 days of this sentencing, she's out of here, and then probably focused on her appeal in Idaho. So it's really not over for you in Idaho.
No, it's not. I mean, but appeals take years and years, and it'll be a different sort of court process. I think the big thing people are waiting on in Idaho is the Chad Daybell's execution. That will take years. That will take decades. In Idaho, they tend to take time for executions. Right now, all executions are on hold. They're bringing back the firing squad. It's possible Chad Daybell could be one of the first people on death row to die by firing squad. But that will take some time for that to happen. Lori has been anxious all along to say she doesn't like the conditions in Maricopa County. She, has been unhappy. She's been unhappy with the judge. I'm sure you talked a lot about that, Justin. She's been unhappy with everything, and she's probably not very happy today. Probably not very happy right now.
Yeah, I'm sure you're getting lunch right now, right? I hope you're getting lunch, getting a break, and
I got to tell you that a kind lady emailed me and said, please come into our restaurant. She owns a restaurant near the airport. She said, I want to pay you and Jordan at the talker for lunch. We didn't tell her we were coming. So we went live on our channel, and we just walked in to surprise her, and she's not here. But her family is, and she gave us a nice sandwich, and so we're about to have lunch. You're probably starving. It's almost 1 o'clock.
We're just on caffeine and we're just streaming, and we're not going to stop because the people want to talk about this big day. But I wanted to ask you, with that being said, how are you feeling? We talk all the time, and we're just there are times, we'll be honest, we're ready for it to be over. We've done the work, we've gone this far, but, seeing this through is important. Some people covering this in the beginning are not in the business or at different stations, and just, life happens. But we have been lucky to be in this position and keep it going, and it's sort of bittersweet.
Yeah, I look at life before Daybell and after. Really, I do, career-wise, family-wise. My kids were 6 years younger when all this happened, and they've grown up, and they've got to know, as were you. I got to tell the audience that I might think I work hard, but then I look at Justin Lum, and that kid's messaging me at 4 a.m. saying, did you see the court docs? And I'm like, I sleep at 4, Justin. You should be sleeping too. He has been relentless covering this, looking at different angles, looking at different scoops, and he is a hard worker who, wants to chase the facts and doesn't get into the drama of it all, and just really wants to get it out there. So everybody should applaud him and his producer too, who's probably, I don't know if he's there with you, Justin.
Yeah, he's right there. He's probably cutting something or getting ready to do something else.
Multitasking, yes.
Is he telling you to wrap it up?
Oh no. Everybody loves hearing from you, but I know it's time for lunch. We appreciate you jumping on. Big day, guilty verdict. I mean, and now this part is over. So, but we'll talk soon before you get out of Phoenix.
All right.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Hmm.
Well said.
Yeah.
It's been a long 6 years, and since December 2019, almost 6 years. Let's just round it up. It feels like 10 years.
Yes.
You had the pandemic. We were covering this in the pandemic. We weren't even in the same building as each other.
That almost feels like it's longer. That year, and so much happened, on this case during that year. I mean, just June of 2020, we were having to deal with all sorts of things not related to this case.
I couldn't come into the building.
Right.
I mean, it was normal for safety reasons, health reasons.
Right,
But
and it really challenged us to, find new ways to cover these stories. But we also quickly learned, I think, that this was a case that had high interest, obviously because you have interest in Arizona, Idaho, of course. We really haven't even talked about Lori's connections to Texas. I mean, the folks in and around Austin and San Antonio are keeping track because of her family connections there. Obviously, the Woodcocks in Louisiana.
she didn't want to live in Houston. It was Charles Vallow who thought, am I taking care of JJ on my own? She's MIA in Hawaii at the time in 2019. She's seems to be very interested in this Chad Daybell character. And then they move back to the Valley, or at least gets her back to Chandler at this rental home. And then everything just gets even worse.
As we, begin now to close this out, we could theorize, how will she try to keep herself in the news? Because once she goes to prison, she pretty much disappears. I'm sure there will be people trying to communicate with her. And I reference Jodi Arias, for instance. Jodi, when she was sent to prison, there were still people running Twitter accounts on her behalf, putting out art that she was doing, still kind of communicating with her, and still are for all intents and purposes that we know out there in Perryville. You can imagine there will still be an interest in her in that regard. But yeah, ultimately she's going to disappear and again, spend the rest of her life behind bars with little to no interaction with anybody in the outside world.
So the thought is that after sentencing, she goes to Estrella jail for a little bit.
Yeah.
But so I don't foresee her going to Perryville just to go to Idaho. Then you'd have, Jodi Arias and Lori Daybell in the same prison.
I mean, maybe. I think Idaho authorities would want to keep her, in an environment, because I think Idaho, they want to bring her back. They want her, just for their own peace of mind. They want her still alive, unharmed, bring her back, and they want to put her in an Idaho prison. So, I would not be shocked if they keep her somewhat separate. But I mean, who knows? Maybe it is possible they both spend time in the same vicinity of each other. But again, two high-profile female cases. And, again, covered the same way. I mean, you're talking 12 years apart, really, 12, 13 years apart, covered similar. And I think I asked the panel this in the last trial, but I wonder if cases like this reiterate the importance of having cameras in the courtroom. You could make an argument.
We always have to fight for them.
Yeah, I mean, you could make an argument that some cases don't deserve it or shouldn't. And I get all that, and we had some things yesterday. A great example, we couldn't show Special Agent Balance on camera, couldn't show his face. So you're going to have things like that where you have to kind of tiptoe around. But I think this is just another reason why we deserve, in many cases, we as the public deserve to have cameras in the courtroom. We need to see this. We need to see people held accountable. We need to see how this process is. And if you're watching and you ever are called to be a juror, look at cases like this and see how important it is. Listen to Brandon, listen to Kay, and you hear from them how important it is for a jury of peers to listen to a case and decide whether someone is guilty or innocent. I think this is just another reason why we should have, in some capacity, cameras inside our courts and follow our judicial system. It's very important.
Yeah, and I think it was handled. I mean, with the 30-minute delay, it was handled right. I mean, you have to think about things that are either graphic or someone like a Nick Balance who can't be seen on camera and things like that. But the Judge Boreski was very fair throughout this whole way with what he was dealing with as well. The person he was dealing with. I mean, Judge Boreski is definitely he needs a little bit of a break after this week. A 6-day trial.
Yes.
Probably feels like 30.
Yeah, I mean, he's dealt with so much. He has
been requested to be removed like 3 times.
Yes, 3 times. I'm sure he gets combative defendants and witnesses all the time, but with the added nuance of having cameras film his every interaction with Lori, I thought he handled himself well. Kind of a master class, as I'm sure most judges would agree that this is how you should handle it. It's not common. We see it, but it's not common for someone to want to represent themselves. And again, rightfully so, because this is unheard of. It's one thing if you want to do it in a civil suit or a misdemeanor case, but in a high-profile felony case like this, I don't know. You just play this weak trial. Just play this one for anybody wanting to represent themselves in a high-profile criminal case, and you'll realize this isn't going to work. The last 2 trials are proof that, as Judge Mel says, you have a fool for a client if you represent yourself.
We will miss Judge Mel for sure.
We will. We'll have him on again in some capacity. He's ready to go.
They're coming back.
Yeah.
We have sentencing to cover as well. Jenny Allison said, start a weekly true crime show to talk about current cases and missing people. I'm sure most of us would all come back to watch that week. That is what On the Record is for.
Yes.
So you guys know that we've been doing that nightly, but the hope is to keep it going with high-profile cases, true crime topics, and missing persons cases. I mean, it's very important. And we did one episode on a big trial in the county that doesn't get that same attention, the Cooksey trial, eight people killed, in a string of serial shootings alleged. And so things like that where, we can open it up, not be held by time constraints. So that's a great suggestion that we are hoping to keep going here. That idea, that's what On the Record is for. And we will definitely miss the interaction with the chat. I mean, still 2,400 watching, and but we'll have our On the Record episode ready for you guys tonight. We'll be back for sentencing and any other interesting hearings that may come up regarding Lori. This is not over, but obviously this major development here, a guilty verdict for Lori Daybell, now convicted of killing her children, conspiring and killing Tammy Daybell, Chad's first wife, Charles Vallow, that conspiracy in Chandler, and now the attempted murder on Brandon Boudreaux's life. And you can bet we'll be trying to talk to him soon when he's ready. So Thank you all for watching. We'll see you soon.